to the LFC Roundtable podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything from the feeds. I'm your host, Aaron Armstrong, and with me today is Brent. How you doing, Brent?
I'm doing great. Nice to be here. Nice to talk Big Brother with y'all. Y'all hear from Taryn so much. You never hear from me. So I am eager to give my rantings and ravings on what is happening in the Big Brother house this week.
All right. Also with us is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing well. I am excited to talk about the feeds. Taryn and I were just talking about how with this new twist, this whole week could be moot. Everything that we've been watching and I've been listening to could be rendered totally moot, or it could all still matter. Who knows? So, everything could change once we find out what's going on with that.
Yes, definitely a lot to talk about with the twist on the way. But for now, we will just be here to argue about everything that's happening on the Big Brother Canada 7 live feeds. And we are live on YouTube. You can join us in the chat room if you want to chat with us and hang out and not yell at us, because that's mean. There you go. So I had you guys fill out a form on Twitter. I have posted the form on Twitter, I should say, and you have filled out the ratings for all of the players in the house, and we're going to get to that later in the show and talk about each and every player. It's one of our favorite parts of each week is to truly rate everyone in the house and make us feel very superior and judgy, to be like, I doth permit you a 2 out of 10. So we'll have fun with that.
I hope you speak like that during the ratings section.
All right. So let's talk about this week on the show. Obviously, the last time we had a roundtable, we were talking about how Mackie was probably on his way out the door. Things ended up changing, and it looked like Kira was on their way out the door, and then they changed again. And then they changed right before the eviction to what ultimately ended up being a 5-5 tie vote, with Dane breaking the tie to evict Mackie. And Mackie says, "A plague on this house, Brent, a plague."
As I talked about on the eviction show, I love people who are going out all bitter. Like, why are you going to be happy that you just got voted out of a chance to win $100,000? So I was here for it. I was not here for that tie vote. I saw the spoilers coming through on Twitter around 5 p.m. Eastern time, and I was aghast. I couldn't even believe it. Like, I saw it was a 6-5 vote. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's 10 votes. And then I realized what had happened. And I'm like, how did that happen? So it took a while to sift through the wreckage of it all and figure out what the hell happened. And I feel like a lot of what happened last week with Kaylin, trying to rally some votes for Mackie, really was fully invested in keeping Mackie. Why, I don't know, but I guess there is a point to Kaylin wanting to keep Mackie, because obviously she had no chemistry whatsoever with Kira. But having said that, it really has just illuminated this week where now Kaylin, basically the invoice is coming due on what she did last week.
I feel like I just feel like it's not worth it to put yourself out there for so much for somebody that early in the game. And I feel like this happens all the time, where like the first couple weeks, someone will be like, for example, Andrew last season will be like, we need to keep this person. It's so important. It's like, it's not really that important, because it's like the first couple evictions, like it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously you can, say, hey, I would hope this person would stay. But if people are against that, don't rock the boat, because then you are a target. And I feel like this keeps on happening as someone sticks their neck out there for somebody, and then the next week comes around to bite them. So, if you go into the house, guys, like, don't stick your neck out for anybody in the beginning. It is not worth it.
Not to berate this point, but Taryn said it best on the weekly update. There were like 7-8 people in the house who all wanted to keep Mackie, and he just made it absolutely impossible for them to do so. Add to that the fact that Tracy brings up in the chat that he had a chance to take an offer of safety from Dane in the HOH competition, where, Dane said, hey, I will not nominate you guys if you guys step down. And Mackie didn't go for it. In fact, he actively tried to win the competition by trying to make a hole-in-one. So I have never seen somebody who basically had everything lined up for them to stay in Mackie and yet still managed to get themselves evicted in spite of all of that. But anyway, that's where we are.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's not that this is like the most important thing to talk about, but I like, I do think it's okay to, casually campaign for someone like, oh, I do really like this person. Oh, this person seems like a little bit more of a threat. But like, I just feel like people are just so, when you become so insistent on a particular result, it just doesn't make you look good. So yeah, that's what's going on here, it seems.
Ultimately, the thing that sinks Mackie, although you can point to many things, but the final straw was bringing up Anthony's name as a potential nominee. He didn't even really have any intention of nominating Anthony. In my exit interview with Mackie, he said the reasoning behind bringing up Anthony was that they kept talking about how, Dane nominated him because he was such a great competitor and a good, player in the house. It was a sign of respect that he was nominated. So, thinking like, oh, it's a sign of respect to talk about nominating Anthony, and we've talked about it to death at this point, but I really just feel like the lack of knowledge about how the game works really just cut this guy short here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
That's where we are this week, where some people have a pretty good idea of what they're doing in the Big Brother house, and they've been able to execute those plans fairly well.
Yes. So Chelsea is going to win the next HOH, and she is quickly going to know that she wants Damien on the block as a pawn, and she's kind of considering, who should go up next to Damien. Should Kaylin be my backdoor target? And so ultimately the decision comes down. Damien is going to go up. Kiki is going to be the pawn next to him, and then they're going to try and use the veto to backdoor Kaylin. Chelsea's supposed reasoning here is that she doesn't want Kaylin on the block all week long because she's worried about what Kaylin might say and the sort of manipulation that she'll be able to manipulate, because with that one time she got 2 extra votes for Mackie. So very worried about Kaylin, and this is the plan. She needs to be backdoored, Melissa.
I just think it's so crazy. Like, what bizarro universe are we in where Kaylin is like, she needs to be backdoored? That's the only way to get this done. I just think it's like, it's insane. I honestly, I would never have suspected that like this early in the game, people would be like, Kaylin's the threat. She's the problem. The only way we can get her out is to backdoor her. It's just like it's not your typical backdoor target at all. So it's pretty strange to see.
Yeah, Taryn, it was more out of fear. I feel like the reason they wanted to backdoor Kaylin, I mean, well, obviously it wasn't for her athletic prowess or anything. It was the fact that they didn't want her sitting up there on the block plotting against them and trying to rally people. That's what they felt happened the previous week with Mackie, that she was rallying people to Mackie's side, and they didn't want to let her have that opportunity this week. I will say that as much as I have poo-pooed this idea of backdooring Kaylin, I have come around to the idea that it was probably a good thing to do, based on the fact that as things currently stand right now, Kaylin's chances of staying in the house are slim to none. If you mess with that timeline and, nominate her 3 days earlier, I don't know where things necessarily stand right now. Now, she may ultimately stay, I don't know. But as things stand right now, she is dead and gone. So Chelsea's plan has gone through, and who am I to call it a bad plan if it works out exactly the way that she wanted it to in the first place?
Yes, Sam is going to end up winning the veto. Sam, Chelsea, and Adam make a deal with Kiki and Esty, and by some extension Dane, that if they save Kiki from the nomination, that Kiki and Esty will not be coming after them, and they have a protection deal until jury. So Sam goes ahead and takes Kiki off the block, replacing her with Kaylin. Kaylin has now been officially backdoored and is in a spot where votes are not looking great for her, and we can talk about that. But just to get back to whether or not this was a good move by Chelsea, I talked about it a little bit this morning. I really don't feel like this was the right move. Watching Kaylin throughout the week, she was completely oblivious to the fact that she was a target. She was talking about how she didn't even want to win HOH next week. And even if she did, she would probably target somebody like Corey, which is just so out of left field. She's still playing in her own world. And meanwhile, Kiki and Esty making this deal with Chelsea and Sam are like, sure, we'll make the deal now, but we are definitely stabbing you in the back next week. And I feel like they are a much greater threat to Chelsea and Sam. Sam kind of sees this, but is not really speaking up too much. And Chelsea and Kira feel very confident in their ability to have swayed Kiki and Esty toward their side, but they're very wrong about that. And so that's I do feel like this was perhaps a mistake, but you guys may disagree here. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was going to ask you guys if you even thought it was a smart move for Chelsea to become HOH in the first place this week. I feel like she was in a position where she really didn't need to put herself out there. I mean, to be fair, I don't feel like it's really affected her game. I mean, as of yet, who knows what's going to happen before Thursday, but like as of yet, I don't feel like it's really put her in a much worse place. I don't think she's the first name target or anything like that. But at the same time, I feel like she was in a situation where I felt like she could have laid a lot lower for a lot longer. So it's kind of, I mean, I guess, okay, she's already HOH. There's nothing we can do about it now. Do I think that Kaylin should be the target? I don't think so. But at the same time, I do feel like after this week with Kaylin as the target, Chelsea's still in a fine place. I don't think it makes her any worse off. So I don't know if that was the move, but I also don't think the move would be to have won HOH this week anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too low on the choice to win HOH, especially knowing who the other option was, with Esty being the other person there. But I feel like there was a better move here. So one of the questions we've been asking week to week is basically whether or not you agree with the HOH and their target during the week. And so, I basically asked, who do you think is the best target for Chelsea's game during her HOH reign this week? And there is a majority here, about 37%, that says yes, Kaylin was the right target, followed by Kira at 22%, saying that Kiki is the in second place there, that Kiki would have been the better target. And I have to kind of agree there that maybe Kiki was a better target in my opinion. But Brent, what do you think?
Well, I'm not really persuaded by those numbers. Number one, it's not even a majority, it's a plurality. And the fact that they voted for Kaylin, I feel like it's just because people don't really like Kaylin and people love Kiki. So they're really not going to want to say anything negatively in a question about her. So I do agree with you in a vacuum that it's probably best for her to target Kiki over Kaylin. However, given the way the game's played out, Chelsea, whether or not she has to win HOH in the first place, I guess you can argue that. But she was up against, was it Steph or Kiki at the end there? I forget in that HOH competition.
It was Esty.
Okay, sorry. Who knows what would happen with Chelsea? So, she could have nominated Sam and Chelsea as a pawn, and Sam could have won the veto. She did win the veto, for God's sake. So, Chelsea could have gone home. So I feel like she had to win HOH. Number one. Number two, to nominate, to try to backdoor Kaylin, I feel like I said, it's worked out. I'm not going to argue with it. She didn't want her a poisonous viper up there on the block, so to speak, for an extra 3 days, plotting against her. And she's got it. She's got her hook, line, and sinker right now. So I don't really feel like we can argue with success. I do know that Kiki is planning on backstabbing Sam if they get HOH. But it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually go through with it. If they actually won HOH, here's the scenario I want to put to you guys. Kiki wins HOH next week. She's getting ready to make nominations, and she remembers that she made this deal with Sam and Chelsea, and that Sam used the veto on her. She really gonna go after her? She really gonna do that? And if you do that in front of this house, if she does that, her word means nothing. I feel like that is a hard way to, she may win the battle, but she's going to lose the war. So I think that would be a terrible idea.
I think that's a really good point. And they have expressed, Kiki in particular, some hesitation in terms of actually going through with the backstab themselves. They're talking a lot about, we would rather throw it to Damien and have him make the move for us.
Girl, it works out that way in storybooks where you get to throw it to the exact person who would do whatever you really want to do. Like, it just never happens unless your name is Derek Levasseur. The things just don't line up that well in the Big Brother house. I think that the way that it's going to happen is, well, I don't know what's going to happen as far as HOH, but if they want to get it done, I feel like they're going to have to do it themselves, and I don't feel like they're going to want to do it. I'm hoping, like, I just put this out on Twitter. I want to tell you guys, I don't know what the hell the hate is for Sam. Not just amongst the house guests, but also the like Twitter incarnate. Like, I love Sam. She's great. She's given us great television. She's in there. She's fighting for shit. You know, I know she can be a little. I feel like she's being penalized for like being a little flirty with Adam.
Well, yeah, bro, she's in a showmance with probably the most hated guy.
I know.
Yeah,
but
I feel like that certainly
though.
didn't help her.
Sam is
I
great.
don't mind her as a person at all. Like, the only thing I mind is when they're being gross. That's just the two of them. Like, when she was talking to Chelsea, like, I'm watching them. I'm totally fine with both of them. Love them both. No problems. It's just when she's in the room alone with Adam doing that weird, like, what am I going to do to you thing? Like, that just like, oh, okay. All right. Change feeds. Like, I don't like that at all. And I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure that certainly doesn't help her case, but I think that she's fine on her own. I just feel like if Adam were to go, I feel like her stock would rise exponentially.
Yes, yeah. But it's going to be difficult for that to happen. Going back to Kiki and Esty, they were talking just today about, like, are we crazy? Do we want to work with Adam? But first we have to get Sam out of the way. But how do we get Sam out of the way without pissing Adam off? Well, we throw it to Damien. So, like, they are trying to figure out a way to get Sam removed so that they can work with Adam, because, like, Adam has become this figure that is like, hey, everyone would love to use Adam as the shield, but meanwhile, he's not shielding anyone. Sam is the shield for him. And the pretty boys are really orchestrating this. Dane in particular is really close with Esty and Kiki at this point, really pushing this narrative of, if we get Sam out, then we've got Adam. And so, whether or not Esty and Kiki will, actually go through with the backstab, I think if they won HOH, they would heavily consider, should we just go after Mark? Dane would say, absolutely not. It needs to be Sam. And I feel like with Dane's pushing and they're, wanting to go after, wanting to work with Adam, I feel like Adam might even be like, look, I understand if you need to do this, because that's kind of how Adam is. And I feel like it might actually go through, especially if he's like, I understand, as long as I'm not nominated, then you can go after Sam.
I don't understand how Adam is avoiding all of this shade from everybody. I mean, he's generally unapproachable within the game. I don't think anybody really likes him all that much. He comes off as intimidating as far as his social game goes, and he's with somebody who's generally hated by at least half of the house. So I'm sort of lost on that. Basically, I'm asking is, why is Sam paying the sins for everything that is wrong with Adam? Because he's pretty terrible.
I think it's the power of social programming, where he has backup, and he only needs these other three guys, and of those three, one of them has no credibility in Mark. So it's really just Anthony and Dane who are pushing this narrative. It's those two guys who are seemingly separate from Adam, pushing this narrative of, we can use him. If we get out Sam, we can use him, and that has spread like wildfire. And this guy who normally would be such a huge target, he would definitely be the shield in front of Sam in any other circumstance, has all of a sudden become the person completely shielded by Sam. It's very interesting to watch, and it's like, these aren't the best players in the world here, talking about Dane and Anthony either.
No, they're not, because Taryn, they're talking about nominating Sam themselves if they get HOH. How the hell is that gonna happen?
And yet the formula is so successful. And that's what I find really interesting about this alliance, because I feel like it's destined to crumble, twist or no twist, and because of the people involved and how bad they can be, and yet it has been finding so much success, and I just find that really, really interesting to watch. Melissa, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was just thinking that, like, what you said was totally accurate, and that, like, it only takes a couple people from seemingly not working together, seemingly from different, like, worlds or whatever, to push this one narrative and convince everybody that this is what's going on, and that you can use Adam, and that Sam's the problem. And, like, when you can see with your own eyes that, like, that doesn't seem to be the case, but because people keep pushing this and because it's been said many, many times, it starts to, seep into the psyche and convince you, oh, Adam is the one we can work with. Sam's the problem. And it's really fascinating to see how this is happening. I mean, when the guys were saying it at first, I was like, there is no way people are going to believe that Sam is the problem here, that Sam is the one that needs to be like evicted. Like, there's no way. But it happened, and now everyone's saying it.
It's like in American politics. You say something enough
totally.
where dumb people just believe it. Oh, you said it, and I hear it enough, so it must be true. They have no fact checking on their own. So I agree with you that seems to be what's happening in the house right now in regard to Sam, and that's too bad too, because I love Sam. I really hope for a Sam HOH. I hope
she needs it.
What am I hoping for? I'm hoping for a Sam HOH. I'm hoping for maybe like an Adam HOH. Oh, that would probably be terrible. But I feel like that would really destroy Adam's game if he won.
Yeah, if he wins HOH, if he wins HOH again, I feel like he'll be done. Like, I feel like people will be like, he wins too much. We can't work with him. Like, he's got to go. I mean, it's possible they'll be like, look what Sam has done. But
yeah,
I really...
Can you believe her?
Can you believe that Sam was able to get this to happen? How? It's crazy. I mean, I could see that happening, but at the same time, like, as much as I wouldn't want to see an Adam HOH, I feel like that could possibly be the thing that tanks this game. And to be honest, if I had to pick between getting either Adam out or Sam out, I would much prefer to get Adam out, and I'd much prefer to keep Sam in. So, I mean, but at the same time,
can we just get Mark out?
Yeah, let's just get Mark out. I will say
no, he's too much of a mastermind, Brent. He's figured it out.
I'll say that Sam, a reason why I don't like Sam as much in the game is because she was so willing to throw away her game and saying she wanted Adam to win and all that sort of stuff. And that's a player that I can't really respect. So
she's not like that now, though. I feel like
I haven't heard that in a while. Yeah, I haven't heard that in a while. So like at the time, I do think that really messed with my opinion of her, because I was like, oh, please get this girl out of here.
I think I think she did actually say something similar either today or yesterday.
Oh, great. Then get her out.
She was like, I would take you to the final two over Kira, knowing that I would beat Kira and lose to you. I'm going to get you that money.
But at least she's saying she'd go to the final two.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me. I feel like
before it was, because also you would say that to someone. You would be like, I'll take you to the final two. If she was saying it to someone else, saying like, I'll take Adam to the final two because I don't care about winning. Like, I want him to win, I'd be a little bit more turned off. But I feel like if she's saying it to the person, it could be a strategy thing, could be potentially, hopefully. And so also she's saying she wants to go to the final two. Before it was like, I will like fall on the sword just to get you to a little bit further in the game, that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah. We'll see what happens there. So what we have now is this vote ultimately here between Damien and Kaylin. And so Kaylin has started to campaign a bit finally. She initially sort of was like, oh, Damien, why did it have to be you? This sucks. I'm kind of dead here. She has gone and campaigned to Kiki and Esty and some others to no success yet. She doesn't really have a great case for herself. Ultimately, she really, this in many ways was overkill for Kaylin as a player, where she got backdoored and now she's up against Damien, who is basically just the same as her, like game-wise, in the sense that they both have the same opinions. They would probably both go after similar people. If anything, Damien was on the I want to get Sam out train more solidly than Kaylin was, and Damien seems more capable of winning competitions, and he has better relationships with the people that have the majority of the votes, really with everybody in the house except for Eddie. And so it's going to be a tough road for her to make a campaign. However, this is a very flippy house, and with people like the pretty boys in charge, if they start hearing things they don't like from Damien, they could flip the vote if they wanted to. And so, I wouldn't say that things are completely stagnant at this point here, Brent.
Yeah, I feel like that Kaylin if she knows what to say, she really needs to zero in on Sam. She needs to get wind that everybody wants Sam out. Because I don't feel like Damien has done a great enough job of being, that forceful about it. And if they feel like Kaylin will get Sam out and say, I'm going to put Sam up, that's who I'm going to get out, and I'm going to put Chelsea up right next to her, then everybody, because first of all, Chelsea ain't voting this week, and there's no way she's going to get Sam's vote if she says she's going after. So everybody else besides Adam will be like, that's kind of what we want to happen. Maybe there's a chance we should actually keep her. But the problem to me is that her ability to win competitions is severely compromised based on what they've seen so far as the way the competitions go. And I do feel like Damien is a pretty malleable presence where they feel good about him staying in the house and doing what they want him to do.
Yeah, I think maybe her best shot is to focus on how much Adam and Sam are campaigning for Damien to stay and Kaylin to leave. And so if she focuses on that, like, hey, there's a reason they want me gone and Damien to stay. Or really, she should focus. There's a reason they want Damien to stay. Right. You might think he's with you, but there's a reason I'm leaving, not him. And so she could maybe gain some traction there. But at the same time, if you're Kiki and Esty and you feel good enough about Damien, there's really no point in rocking the boat and upsetting Sam and Chelsea before the HOH competition when basically both nominees are about the same and you just made a deal with these people. So it makes so much more sense for them because they are secretly getting the better end of the deal where it doesn't matter which one goes, whichever one stays is still with them and targeting the other side. So to rock the boat is an unnecessary thing and puts a target on their back. So like I said, it's kind of a hard sell, but this house is pretty flippy. So you never know. Never know. So let's talk about the state of the house here. Obviously, the pretty boys are still in charge. They still have a stranglehold on the game here. Adam, Dane, Anthony, and Mark, they have influence that basically spreads the entire house. Most notably, Dane, Kiki, and Esty Dane has Kiki and Esty, I should say. Adam sort of has Chelsea, Sam, and Kira. And when I say has, I don't mean that they control them, just that they have influence, and they are using that influence pretty well. Adam less so than Dane, but Anthony also has influence with these people, but they're kind of grouped up with Adam. They also have sort of individually some different relationships with Corey. They have some influence over her. They've got different relationships with Damien, obviously, but a lot less influence on him than they think. They also think that they have a little bit of influence with Eddie, but that's also not the case, although they are starting to catch on to that fact, especially given the fact that he voted the other way and hasn't really been talking with them all that much recently. So that's really the pretty boy. That's how they're in charge of the house at the moment. They have these two separate groups. They're kind of sitting in the middle, playing the groups off of each other in many ways, and sort of spreading them out and targeting them to different sides or different people. And it's for as many mistakes as we watch them make over and over, they are still running the house here, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I'm surprised people aren't really catching on to the fact that they're closer than maybe they appear. It's a little odd to me that everyone thinks that, or I guess certain people think that certain people are working with them. For example, we've got Adam over there and Chelsea and Kira are thinking that Adam's with them. I mean, obviously Sam thinks that Adam's with them, but then you've got God, how am I forgetting his name? Dane. You've got Dane over there with Kiki and Esty, and they're convinced that Dane is like the person that's like closest to them and who's going to help them out, and that's their person. And they're even saying like, we need Dane, we need him, like Dane needs to win or Damien needs to win too. Like it's weird to me that no one's catching on to this like foursome that's going on. I'm a little surprised especially with the amount of time I see the guys kind of hanging out together or talking together. You'd think there'd be something. You'd think like, hey, it is a little strange that the four guys in the house haven't really you always see people say, oh, the women, they're going to form a women's alliance. It's a girls' alliance. They're going to take us all out one by one. Why does no one ever think the guys are doing that when typically the guys do that in every single season? So I'm a little surprised that there's not even like rumblings of like the four of them, but who knows?
Well, it's not for the fact that they haven't been making mistakes,
Right.
Taryn.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like that their reign in the house to me is going to come to an end. I don't know if it's going to come to an end because of this twist or not. I hope not. But if it does, it does. I think it's only a matter of time before they're found out. And by the way, I am also not totally convinced that Dane is more loyal to the Pretty Boys than he is to actually Kiki and Este. Like, yes. I feel like that time is coming where he would actually side with them rather than with the Pretty Boys, especially with Adam, who not a lot of anybody has a lot of rapport with right now.
Yeah, it's definitely something to talk about, because I think it's definitely a possibility. Just to finish up the Pretty Boys here, like their motivation, their goal at this point is a little separate. They're not entirely on the same page. They're really a group of people who are not equipped to handle the success that they are having, right? Where it's like, and you can see that in many different ways, where Adam just like isn't capable of playing the level of play that's required of him in the position that he is, but the formula is like holding it out for him. Anthony, who is finding a lot of success, learning a lot of things as he goes on, finding that he has a lot of control, is like not equipped to handle how powerful that makes him, and is kind of losing his head in that. You've got Mark, who thinks he's doing really well, but actually nobody trusts him, and he's being protected by the guys, and that's the only reason he's really holding on. And then you've got Dane, who is like the least connected to the formula, has probably one of the better social games, but strategically his head is in the sand. He's just so focused on Sam, and it's just like, it's a tinderbox. You're just waiting for something to light this aflame, and you don't want it to be a twist, because it would be so much more fun if it were them, because they're going to cause it themselves. But anyway, their goal here is, Adam would love for his group, Adam, Sam, Chelsea, and Kira, to team up with Dane's group of Dane, Kiki, and Esty, drag along Anthony and Mark, and then also bring maybe somebody like Damien to the final 9. That's the jury. That's his goal right now. His next couple of targets are people like Eddie, people like who's the other one that Corey is definitely in there, but he kind of also likes Corey. I feel like there's somebody else that I'm forgetting that he wants to target, but that's fine. And
Kira,
meanwhile, maybe? Who the?
Kira? No, not Kira.
Oh yeah, he would like to get Kira out, actually. Yeah. I forgot about that. So I mean, his group includes Kira, but unfortunately, none of them particularly like Kira all that much. Chelsea does, but gets annoyed with them a lot. So what are you gonna do? Anyway,
I was gonna say, who does at this
point? So that's Adam's goal. Meanwhile, Dane's goal is, I need to get Sam out, no matter what. As soon as possible. He needs to go.
She gotta go. Oh my God.
Sam. So it's like Adam has a nine person jury plan. Dane's plan is Sam. Anthony's plan is, I want to manipulate people to come after Sam, and I want Chelsea to do it, and I want Kira to be attacked, and I want it to go this way. He's got his own thing going on.
Oh my God! No, wait, we had to stop right there. Okay, for those of you, I just have to bring this up. This gave me gales of laughter for like 2 days straight. So Taryn is on the podcast with Kirsten McInnes, and this is like 2 days ago. And they're talking about Anthony and all of the praises of Anthony. This is before he went a little downhill yesterday. And so they're talking about Anthony, all the praises about Anthony. And Kirsten says, well, I feel like we have this conversation every year where we're going to get a question like in 2 to 3 weeks, like, if Anthony goes on to win, is Anthony the best player? He's one of the best players in Big Brother Canada history. And she's like, I just feel like that's just not going to happen. I just have a gut feeling, and you're like, well, there's plenty of people that, we get this question about, people that we typically get that question about typically do go on to do well in the game. People like Vanessa, like Tyler. And she's like, yeah, but I'm talking about people who can win, people who actually win the game. And so, and you're like,
really shading Tyler and Vanessa.
I know, right? So then you're like, well, well, that's okay. Like, she's like, well, I just fundamentally disagree with you about what is the definition of somebody who is playing well during week 3 of Big Brother. So then you were a total gentleman and you were like, well, who do you think is somebody that's playing the best right now in Big Brother? And she's like, I know that this would sound really crazy, but Corey. And then you're like, oh, okay, Corey, okay, maybe. Like, she's like, no, I don't think Corey can win. And you're like,
I was like,
oh
wait,
my
what?
God. That's just what you said about Anthony. Like, you were losing your mind. I love you. You're the only person to make Taryn like just totally like steam coming out of his ears. Like, what?
All I thought it was funny. I was like, wait a minute, what? I don't understand what you're saying. I asked you who you think has the best chance to win, and the first person you brought up, you're like, I don't think she can win.
I don't think she can win. Yeah. And then she's does a little tap dance there where she's trying to like. It was fun. It was. I've been there. Believe me, honey, I've been there.
I thought it was a very fun conversation actually, and I think it's an interesting conversation to have because there usually is somebody that comes and stands out early on, and we talk about we talk about Pauly as the prime example of that, where
Yes.
and really, people misremember that, where it was like we got a fan question that was asking, is Pauly, going to be one of the best players of all time if he goes on to succeed? And we laughed at that question. Like, we were like, no. Like, he hasn't even succeeded yet, first. Second, he's not that great. And so, like, I don't know. People misremember. I do think that usually when you see somebody as a standout, they do go on to do decently well. But really, what I find interesting about Anthony, and the reason I talked about him in comparison to Derek, is that I think he has similar tendencies and he has similar weaknesses that I saw in Derek, and I think those are very much more pronounced in Anthony than they were in Derek, because Anthony doesn't know the game very well.
Anthony doesn't know the game, and he can't believe that what he's doing is succeeding, even though he's always talking about staying humble. He has a complete inability to stay humble from where I'm sitting. I don't think there's any part of him that actually is humble about the way he's currently doing. He might say that, but it's, I don't know. It's sort of like me saying, like, I'm not getting angry right now. Like, you're just saying it, but nobody actually believes it.
I mean, if you have... Go ahead, Terry.
We're lions. We've got a castle. They can't crumble our castle. But stay humble. But we're lions. And they're Pumbas and Timons.
Oh, my God. All I know is that, I mean, if you have the ability to convince people to do things in the way that, Derek has, or possibly Anthony has, you use it, but you got to use it sparingly, and you have to be very low key about it, because you want them to be convinced but not know that you're actively trying to convince them of anything. And then Anthony, it seemed like he was heading in that direction, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I can do this, I'm doing a great job. And then it just was too much. And if you then make it really obvious that you're doing it, and you do it too often, it becomes very apparent, and you lose all your power, you lose all your credibility. So that's the concern here. And Derek, however he was able to do it, was able to like tease it out throughout the whole season, rather than all at once, like right in the beginning. That's where you don't do it, because it also doesn't really matter in the beginning.
Yeah, Nikki in the chat has a great comment here. She says, I feel like he has heard be humble a lot as advice to him, so that's why he keeps saying it so much. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to think about in terms of like what it does to your psychology to be in a house like Big Brother, where the goal is manipulation, and you find that you are capable of manipulating other people. It's actually kind of a wonder that people like Derek are able to keep their heads relatively small, right? Where like somebody goes into this position, they've never really been in this position before. All of a sudden they feel so powerful. They're controlling what people do. They're controlling votes. They're telling people, manipulating people, one way or another. I can imagine what that does to you as a person to feel that power over other people. I think it's kind of a very evil sort of thing that probably will like damage your soul. And actually, thinking about it as I'm talking, Dan has talked about that he did an Instagram live for like the 10th anniversary of Big Brother 10 or whatever it was, and he talked about how that affected him post show, and it's actually really interesting. Hopefully I will eventually nail him down to a time and a place to talk to him on the Taryn show to talk about this sort of thing. But it's a really fascinating topic for me, and it's interesting seeing Anthony go through it.
Yes. Well, I'm still. I don't want to oversell this. I do still feel good about Anthony's position in the house. Nobody's coming for Anthony. He's a well-liked guy. He has done a few things lately that have made me question his ability to play the long game, but I am not off the bandwagon yet.
Yes, and I've said this. I still think he's probably in the best position in the house at the moment, but there are some things that are dragging him down for now. So that's the Pretty Boys. We also have they don't really have a name that I would call them, so they're kind of just like this Saddam, the Adam and Sam kind of grouping with Chelsea and Kira. They're kind of a foursome with Kira as sort of the fourth that nobody likes a lot, but has them there because they're a number, which is unfortunate because Kira has some actually decent contributions, in particular with Anthony, as they're one of the few people that kind of caught on to what Anthony was doing. They're decently loyal to themselves, the group of themselves, despite the fact that they're willing to cut Kira loose, and Adam is actually more loyal to the Pretty Boys. But they work decently well together for how they're composed, and they have recently made this deal with the Dane, Kiki, SD group that we've talked about. Dane, Kiki, and SD don't really plan on following through with that deal, but Chelsea, Sam, Adam, and Kira, to varying extents, do kind of believe in this deal and probably would not go after them. Speaking of the Dane, Kiki, SD group, they have not really, but kind of tentatively shot out some potential names here, and one of them was Trinomites, which...
Oh, help me.
I talked about this on Twitter. Like, what is it with Big Brother Canada and terrible alliance names? Like, not that there haven't been some bad Big Brother US alliance names, because there have been, certainly Faute amongst many others, but there have also been some decent ones, and I feel like for the most part the Big Brother Canada batting average is so much lower. You know,
so
Pretty Boys, Diaper Alliance.
Yeah, I just keep going back to the Diaper Alliance. It's just so bad. That is literally the worst alliance name. I don't think there's been a worse alliance name than the Diaper Alliance.
Like, First Five was probably one of the better ones, you know? Like,
and that's not like that's terrible.
Yeah.
It literally is just that they're the first five. Like, it's not even creative.
Yeah.
Oh well.
The Quattro, which was like immediately copied because it's such a generic thing.
I just want to say I would love to see the alternate timeline where Canada's HOH does not happen. And what happens to the first five in that scenario. I am very curious about that. I've always wondered, like, I do feel like people would have naturally come after Andrew, and I know I'm going off the track here, but I given that we have a twist coming up, it's one thing that I do often think about, like a few things here and there. Like, there have been a couple of big forks in the road on Big Brother, and I feel like one of them was Cindy, backdooring Netta during Big Brother Canada 5, although that wasn't a twist, and then Canada's HOH during Big Brother Canada 2, when seemingly the first five was in total control of the house, to the point where they're just bragging about it in the diary room. Go ahead, Terrence. Sorry.
Well, it's interesting. Like, I feel like in Big Brother Canada 2, it was more like winds were starting to turn one way, and the production or the twist or whatever you want to call it, sort of like helped it along, right? Where it was it was like a 50-50 shot in the HOH as to which side was going to get power, and whichever side got it was going to sort of take control of the momentum from that point forward. Whereas something like what will happen now, or maybe a better example is a Big Brother Canada 4 with the fake double eviction. That was more like winds were gusting in one direction, and then they like slammed a wall down and pushed them the other way. So that's kind of how I feel this kind of twist would be, where everything's really running toward one direction, and I do think it will eventually splinter off. But if it happens right now that it gets overturned, then it's really just like this is too much here. So we'll talk some more about the twist once we finish through the state of the house. But there's probably a decent amount to talk through there. So Trinomite. Dane, Kiki, and Esty. Dane is more loyal to them than Adam is to his group, than Adam is to even his showmans. I've talked about this on the updates, that I think Dane is, for all of his talk with Adam about how Adam needs to cut Sam, if anybody talked to Dane about needing to cut Esty, I think Dane would be like, excuse me? He would not be okay with that. They are really starting to grow pretty close. Dane is still loyal to the Pretty Boys, though. He has not told Kiki and Esty about them, and his hit on Sam is sanctioned by Anthony, the overlord of the Pretty Boys. So he has not gone rogue quite yet, despite the fact that he is hiding that fact from Adam. They don't, like I said, intend to follow through with their deal with Adam's group. They want Sam gone. They kind of want to work with Adam, with Dane's direction. So if you remove Dane from that equation, you've got Youngblood / the twins. That's Kiki and Esty, the real alliance that's not currently being undermined by the fact that the Pretty Boys have an in there, and they trust Dane way too much. So that's what we really should call them. It's a better name anyway. Both of them are better names than Trinomite, and it's they're actually loyal to each other here, Melissa.
Yeah, those are much better names. Either the twins or Youngblood, much better than Trinomite. Oh my god.
By the way, Melissa, do you share the opinion that the morning people do, and I actually do share this opinion as well, that really Kiki needed to be nominated this week in order to get herself in the game more and get herself, talking with other people rather than just having a little twosome with Este, because I do feel like that her overall value in the game has improved, even though she was just on the block.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like my opinion is definitely tainted by the fact that she's no longer on the block. I feel like if she was still on the block, I might be like, oh, I don't know, like she could still go home this week. But now that she's off the block, I'm absolutely certain that she's in a better position now because she was on the block. I feel like before we were all a little worried about her because it just seemed like she wasn't getting her head in the game, and she was just having too much fun just hanging out with
She's
Esty.
at summer camp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The two of them were just hanging out and not really thinking about the game, and now I feel like their minds are completely in the game, and they're thinking of all the different scenarios, and they're thinking about how they can get themselves further. And I'm on board with the idea that she kind of needed that kick in the pants.
Yes. And, really, I think she's not quite out of the hot water yet. She's still a potential target. And really, it's the Dane connection that is really troubling. The fact that, she really should be with Damien, but they, both her and Esty trust Dane a lot more. And he will lead them to misery, I believe, if left unchecked. So that's and really, she still is mostly talking with Dane and Esty more than anyone else, really letting the Mark connection go. Not that Mark would be a very valuable connection, but it's better than nothing. So I like the momentum here. I hope that it continues. I hope that now that she's off the block and is safe, that she doesn't go back to her old ways, which unfortunately might be what might happen here, which is similar to I think what happened with Kira when they were on the block. So
yeah. Yes. I was just going to say, I feel in regards to the Mark thing, I feel like even if they're annoyed by him or they don't like him or whatever, like, I feel like it's so strange to me that they're so willing to just like give up on that connection. Yeah. Like, I feel like just even watching like just a couple interactions between Mark and Kiki, it was just like, if I was Mark, I'd be like, this girl hates me and I should not talk to her ever again because she clearly does not want to even talk to me. It was like she was just like so annoyed with the fact that he was even talking to her. And yeah, like he was being annoying. I'll give her that, like totally. But it's Big Brother and you have to pretend like you like people in order to use them. I mean, he could be a valuable asset for them. He has an in with the Pretty Boys. He could possibly win competitions. And if he thinks that he can use them and they think that they're using him, they'll want to keep each other around longer. So I really don't get why they're not even trying with that one. Like it doesn't make sense to me.
It really feels to me like they're just creating an enemy of him for no particular reason.
Right.
And it's like, that's just like, it probably doesn't matter right now, but that's the sort of thing that like, and having an enemy in the house is just no good. Like he has no reason to really target anybody. So if he feels shunned by them, then all of a sudden, like for his game, if he has any influence anywhere, which he kind of does, that's just, it's not good for them. And it's not really necessary for them to be doing that or feeling that way. And that one's not even Dane's fault, because he's trying to stop that from happening.
And that's the thing is like, you don't need to be best friends with someone. You don't need to hang out with them. But like when they are talking to you, act like you're not so beyond over this conversation. Like at least just fake it, you know, for the 5 minutes that you're in a conversation with them, and then say you got to do something else. Like, I don't know. It's just like, what are they doing?
We also got Chelsea and Kira as a bit of a duo, despite Chelsea's utmost efforts to prevent them from actually being a duo. As we've seen on the episodes and talked about on the live feed updates, there's a lot of tension here. There's a lot of Chelsea, Kira, we can't be hanging out so much. Maybe we should even fake a fight to give an excuse for not hanging out so much. And Kira is like, but I want to hang out. Like,
a little,
come on,
kind of sad.
I just
feel
want to hang
bad.
out with you. Our wine time was not very long.
So
Can
do
we
we
have
feel
longer
like-
wine time?
I feel like Kira has a crush on Chelsea.
Yeah.
And that's just
feel like
they
that's-
long and short of it.
Yeah, they basically like almost said it outright to Sam. You know, talking about like how much they want to cuddle with Chelsea and how Chelsea, you know, was kind of like, I might be into that, or so Kira says. So,
Right. So
you
Kira
know,
says, yeah.
you know,
Well, yeah, Kira also says that SD is like saying a bunch of stuff to Kira. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much we can trust Kira.
yeah. Kira can just be very awkward. I saw them earlier in the day with Esty and Kiki, and Esty and Kiki were in the bed, and Kira just kind of like laid down in between them and put their arms out like, "Oh, hug me," and then they didn't, and they're like, "Ah,
I
funny."
missed that part.
It's just like, oh man.
Ow, so awkward.
So yeah, it's you know.
Yeah,
things
but
are happening.
Melissa, like, I would never do that. Like, if there's a couple of straight boys sitting over here, like, I wouldn't just decide to like plop down and flirt with them.
I wouldn't do it with anybody.
I
Like,
would
I
have to
just,
have some sort of a rapport with them, and even, you know, like where I knew that they knew that, like, I knew that there's nothing gonna happen. Like, I just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
or if it's like a situation where you already have that sort of relationship where you're like touchy and like that's like you hug each other and that's like the sort of thing you do. But like, I personally wouldn't, with even with like straight guys or anything, I wouldn't just like plop down in the bed like everybody, you know. I just feel like I wouldn't like do that. So it's just a strange situation, and I also wouldn't know how to react if someone did that to me. I'd be like, okay, hi,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so you know that's going on. We've also finally got Kaylin and Eddie as a bit of a duo in the house. Obviously,
Soon to be a singleton.
yes, looking like this is going to break up. They really kind of took the place of the twins from last week, where they really were just talking to themselves all week long until Kaylin finally got backdoored, and now Eddie is finally starting to branch out again. But at this point, the damage might be done because a lot of people have felt like their relationship with him has degraded, and he's become a bit more of a target, which worries me because now that he's making moves again and he's talking to people, he's doing well, and I'm like, yes, this is the Eddie I want to see. You're good at this when you're doing stuff. So you know, I in many ways I don't want Kaylin to leave because I kind of love the Kaylin Eddie duo. I find them very funny. For as much as they only talk to each other, sometimes like I just find their conversations really entertaining. But at the same time, almost like a Kiki Esty situation, I feel like maybe it is necessary for Kaylin to leave in order for Eddie to fully blossom into the player that he needs to become. So you know, it's a tough call there, but what are you gonna do? So
Yeah.
let's talk about this twist. Right? We learned last night that there is a new twist in the game that the audience is going to vote for one player to enter the blood veto room, and they're going to see exclusive video intel on their other house guests. So we don't know exactly what this means. You know, are they going to go in there and see a prepared package from the preseason, similar to the secrets thing, where they find out more information on the other people? Like where, I don't know, like I don't know what they would show at that point, since they already sort of did the thing with the secrets, but I guess it's a possibility. Are they going to go in there and watch feeds similar to the fake double eviction, where, you know, they got to watch, I believe it was muted feeds all week long.
All week long.
Would it be muted feeds? Would it be feeds with audio, like Damien when he went in and watched, you know, the players enter? Or are they going to go in there and perhaps see some kind of edited package of crucial moments that will actually tell them things? Because if they go in there for an hour to watch feeds, not particularly likely that they'll catch anything like super interesting. And even then, the, producers are kind of in charge of what they see, right? So it's still like, no matter how you shake this, I'm personally not a fan, and I'm really hoping it's like the much lesser of all of the evils that we've spoken of. I really don't want to go off on it before it happens, but once it does happen, if it is some kind of prepared footage, that's just really, really bad, and I really hope it's not that, because that's basically just like production gets to tell a house guest whatever they want, right? Like, with proof. So it's like,
I don't see that happening. I really don't. I don't see it happening where they like prepare a package and like show them, unless it's just like funny moments or something. But I don't see them doing that, because then like, what's the point? That's not a game.
Well, see, here's the thing. What I'm worried about, like, I take your point, Taryn, that if they just get like an hour with non-audio video to watch, the chance of them really seeing anything significant is not good. But that's the problem. Production also knows that, so they're liable to get their hands a little sticky, making sure that the twist has a little bit of payoff. But in doing so, I feel like they're going to buy the whole hog, and that's where we'll be in trouble.
I wonder if they're going to do something similar to what they've done in the past, where they set the house guests up with some kind of task, or put them in a room or give them some kind of choice, and then this house guest gets to watch that. So it's kind of like maybe like what Karen got to watch, and other people got to watch Ica, that one time, and they've kind of done those things before. Only this time maybe it's a vote. Like, I'd be kind of okay with that. Like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It wouldn't be like regular gameplay. Hopefully it would be some kind of like, there still might be something really bad in there somewhere, but it wouldn't be controlled by production as much. And really at this point, these players should learn that anytime they're set up into a particular thing, to not speak their feelings, because they've leaked this stuff all the time. So that's probably my best case scenario, thinking about it now.
Yeah, I could totally see that being what it is. I mean, it's likely that, or it's a situation where they're watching the feeds, but there's no audio. And if that's the case, I'm okay with that, because, okay, worst case scenario, they see the pretty boys all in a room together talking. Well, okay, we don't know what they're talking about. So you could go to them and be like, hey, I saw you four in the room together talking. And then they could easily be like, we were just talking about like whatever, sports or something. And then there's no way to refute that. So whereas if they're showing it with audio, which is like some people's concern, they'd be like, oh, we were talking about sports. They'd be like, no, I heard you were talking strategy. So I don't think they would do that. I don't think they would use audio. I think it's what you said. It's either going to be one of those like, voting things where you put the coins into the person's slot or whatever, and you can talk about it and they can overhear that and see who they vote for. Or it's a situation where they're seeing the feeds like in the Big Brother US HOH room. Like, that's the only thing I can think of that would be even remotely okay.
Could you imagine it though? Like, the audio is not good on the feeds, right? But could you imagine if one house guest got to watch feeds with audio? Just like what that would do to the feeds, because the players from that point on would only ever talk strategy anything. Like this, like whatnot.
Yeah.
Whisper,
there's no way they're going to do that.
Nobody's able to understand what we're saying, so nobody knows. It would be a nightmare. There's
no way they'd do that. I mean, they would know that that's a total risk. I mean, at the same time, they already did that thing where they revealed their secrets after they, set them pre-game. And I feel like that also is going to ruin pre-game interviews, but whatever. Maybe they don't care. Maybe that's just a thing that Big Brother Canada doesn't care about. But I really don't see them just like playing feeds for the person with full audio, full feeds. I just feel like that would ruin feeds from then on. So no.
A lot of people are saying, we've been wondering why quad feed was muted. Maybe they just get no audio on the quad feed.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's really, that's what it is. So there's obviously, no matter what happens here, no matter what level of severity it is, it has the potential here to maybe expose the pretty boys, or expose any number of things at this point. And with what the pretty boys are doing, being exposed basically annihilates their entire game, which, in my opinion, would not be very fun. Like we've talked about, I feel like they're already going to ruin their own games. I feel like they are going to turn on each other at some point, and there's just a lot that I would like to see play out here. And I tweeted out as soon as this happened, like, the last thing I ever want is to have to talk about the Pretty Boys as, they were dominating the game until a twist screwed them. They might be one of the better and more dominant alliances that we've ever seen, but we'll never find out because of a twist. Like, I don't want to have to talk about these people like that. I really don't.
We want to talk about them going up in flames and just totally tanking their own games and how that all comes about. That's what we want.
I want to talk about them like we talk about Polly, where it's like, remember the Pretty Boys?
Yeah.
And now they're on the Canadian Challenge.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm with you now. I'm like, I didn't get that for a second. Sorry, I'm with you.
I've been watching the challenge.
Yes, I have been too. Yes.
So I asked the audience, are you for or against voting for a player to receive top level video intel about the other house guests? And way down low in the against, in the 20s here, out of 100 people are against this. Not quite as low as I expected. I expected probably in the 10s, but there were some people that were kind of for it. Going back to the previous week, for comparison, this is easily the lowest that we saw, except for the "Are you for or against the extra house guest," which also was heavily against in the votes here. So, not a lot of people like this one, at least in our audience here. All right. Just while we're at it, I also asked, after a week into this, are you still for or against not having the HOH compete in the veto? And last week it was 39. This week it's 49. So the approval rating has gone up slightly for the HOH not competing in veto. Now it's about 50-50 in terms of for or against, which I found interesting.
Yeah, people are just getting used to it now, I feel like,
yeah.
And it hasn't really it hasn't bitten anybody in the ass. So whatever. I mean, us ranting about it's not going to change anything. They're going to keep doing it. They've already announced it to the house guests, so we're stuck with it for the end of the season until Final Five. So whatever.
All right.
Still no twist in the first place, but we'll see. I will say, what has the veto was used this week. The veto was not used the previous week, right? Yeah. With Mackie and Kira on the block. Yeah. And then what happened the first week? Oh, there was no veto. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Another 1 for 2.
All right, so let's get into the stock watch. Definitely, we spent a lot of time pre-stock watch here, so definitely want to move along quickly once again for this one. Let's see, we've got it up here, the stock watch, and we have the previous ratings up on the screen. If you follow along on YouTube, we've got the chart in front of you. If you are a listener, then we will do our best to explain what we're doing here. We're just giving numbers, just giving ratings. Let's start with Chelsea, our HOH. Last week, Chelsea received an average of 6 out of 10, with Brent giving her a 7, and then myself, Melissa, and the audience all giving her 6s. So now that she's HOH, she's had a week to do whatever she wants in power, to make deals, to put people up on the block, to take a target out of the house. How do we now feel about Chelsea? Brent, I'll start with you.
This may be a little bit of a hot take, and I don't know that she's necessarily done anything on her own, except for the fact that I think perhaps there's an argument that she's targeted the wrong person with her HOH. I do feel like she is in some danger moving into next week, and she cannot be HOH by the virtue of the fact that she is the current HOH. I do feel like just by the fact that she is so close with Sam is not good for her. I gave her a 4. I don't know if you guys feel like that's too low, but given where she was last week compared to how I feel about her heading into, what she's done this week, heading into next week, she had power. She did something with it. She's probably going to get Kaylin out. Okay. Kind of a weak move. I mean, she sees it as a, resume building move. It's not that to me, but on the other hand, it sort of united the house. I guess it's a rating for the fact that I am nervousing about her position in the house moving forward into next week. Because if Sam somehow is safe next week, or Adam rallies the boys for her, I do feel like Chelsea has a good chance of going home.
Right. It could be a situation where, like, I see what you're saying, because it could be a situation where Sam is the target and they feel like for some reason, they can't get to Sam because maybe Adam wins, the veto takes Sam off, whatever. Yep. And then it's like, well, you know what? We got to get somebody. So let's take out Sam's ally, Chelsea. And then boom, Chelsea gets the boot for no reason. I do think, however, I wouldn't give Chelsea a 4 just because I do think she had a good HOH reign. Generally, I don't feel like she's in that much worse of a position than she was previously, besides the fact that now she can't win HOH. But I also don't necessarily feel better about her than I did. So I'm just going to stick with my 6 because I'm kind of on the fence about her.
By the way, I see people in the chat saying that nobody's going after Chelsea. Honey, Big Brother history is littered with the corpses of people who no one was going after heading into that week, and somehow they went home. So I feel like her positioning is suspect. Is there any animosity currently directed at Chelsea? No, but her positioning is suspect, and that's why I'm giving her the rating I'm giving her.
All right. My estimation of Chelsea as a player has gone up from last week. I have more confidence in her intelligence and her game ability than I did in the previous week, which would have led me toward giving her a 7. However, her positioning, as we've talked about, has gone down in my view. I don't like the targeting of Kaylin. It's not necessarily the worst move, but I feel like there were better moves. She is in danger of being put on the block next to somebody like Sam, which puts her in a lot of danger.
Or Kira. I also feel like if anybody comes for Kira, not that anybody's necessarily coming for Kira right now, but she is a combustible presence. They are a combustible presence in the house. And if anybody's wanting to put Kira on the block, I do feel like Chelsea would go next to them. Sorry, I don't mean to belabor the point.
Yeah, and despite the fact that Kira doesn't have much credibility in the house, I do believe that Chelsea would leave sitting next to Kira. I don't think anybody would vote Kira out over Chelsea, which is part of why Chelsea is so desperate not to be bundled up with them. Ultimately, position-wise, it's gone down. My confidence in her as a player has gone up. I'm going to stay the same here at a 6 for now. I feel confident in her ability as long as something doesn't go wrong in the coming weeks. I feel like I'm interested to see where she goes, but where she's positioned right now is just a little precarious. The audience is also with Melissa and myself at a 6 out of 10. So there we go. Let's move on to Damien. Damien on the block as a pawn. This is his second time on the block as a pawn. Melissa, we'll start with you. How do you feel about Damien?
I feel about the same. I'm a little concerned that he's now considered, that possibly he could be considered a perpetual pawn. And it could be a situation where, he's just a perpetual pawn. That means he'll just keep being dragged along as a pawn. But, there are some situations where that pawn looks like a juicy target after the veto is played. So I don't feel as good because I don't like the idea that now he's considered the pawn. But at the same time, I do feel like he's kind of kept himself off the radar as a big target. I mean, you would have thought that him being on the block right here, it would have been a nice situation to just easily get him out when he seems to be a strong competitor. But I just feel like the odds of someone, I don't feel this way. It's true. The odds of someone going home increase when you're on the block every week. So I don't feel as good about him, but I don't feel bad about him. So I'm just going to give him a 5.
Yes, and last week we all gave him 6s, including the audience, and I'm actually with Melissa on this one. Not much has changed with Damien, except for the fact that he voted to evict Kira, which I didn't particularly like, and he is now on the block, technically in danger of going home, which is totally not off the table in my view. I still like his chances moving forward if he stays. I like his relationships. I like his overall demeanor, but not quite as much as when he was off the block and not on as many radars, so I went with a 5 as well. Brent, What did you think?
You went with a 5.
Yes.
Okay. I'm the Russian judge this week because I gave him a 4. And I gave him a 6 last week, but I'm giving him a 4 this week, and here's the reason why. It's sort of like the reverse of the girl from a chorus line, where it's like looks 10, game 4, because I don't have any confidence in his ability whatsoever. He said earlier this week that he wanted to like have his people and ride with his people in face of whatever the game required of him. So he doesn't want to do what the game requires. He just wants to be with his people that he likes and ride them off into the sunset, whether he wins or loses. That to me shows somebody who is not very adaptable within the Big Brother game, and also feels a little bit of morality about the way they're playing the Big Brother game. Also add to the fact that another week has gone by and he hasn't really made any bonds with anybody except for Este and Kiki, who he already had bonds with in the first place. I feel like add to that the fact that he voted the wrong way after being on alert that they were, the votes were going this specific way, and he still went the other way. If you're asking me about how has he done this week, like, what has he done that's positive other than being a pretty agreeable guy? I feel like there are many strikes against him, so I don't like his chances right now. I give him a 4.
There you go. The audience was once again with Melissa and myself at a 5. So there we go there for Damien, who has dropped from a 6 to a 5 overall on the average here. Next up is Kaylin, who last week had an average of 3. Melissa and myself gave her a 3. Brent went with a 2, and the audience had her at a 4. This week, I am going to drop this down to a 2. I don't want to go all the way down to a 1. I do want to reserve that for Mackie at the moment. I do think there is a chance that Kaylin could theoretically survive this week and have a theoretical chance to win this game, more so at least than Mackie did. So I'm still at a 2 here, and I for as much as she was in her own world, she is not actively sabotaging her own game nearly as much as I would want a 1 to. So I'm with a 2 here. Brent, what do you think?
On my paper I wrote down a 1, but I'm willing to go with a 2. I'll give her a 2 here because of 2 things. Number 1, she is campaigning. She's trying. She has a couple of good lines that she's taking, maybe not necessarily the best line. I take Terrence's point that we really want to reserve the 1 for the people who are absolutely doing bad. On the other hand, she says she has a pulse. Her pulse on the house, and yet she couldn't see this coming. I have
Brent,
to give her.
She saw it coming. She says she saw it coming, so she definitely did.
She keeps saying that she saw this come. Oh, I knew it was going to happen. Girl, shut up. You did not.
Yeah.
You did not.
She had no idea.
You had no freaking clue it was happening. Yeah, your head's buried in the sand. So I want to give her a 1, but I do feel like there is a small chance that she could actually turn this around, and she is trying. And so. I want to give her a 1, but I give her a 2.
All right, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I'm going to give her a 2.
Okay.
There you go. The audience is also in agreement here. A very solid 2 here from the audience as well, which I believe is going to be the lowest of the season thus far from the audience, even lower than Mackie. The audience was not on the Mackie train yet when we did the last roundtable. So there we go. Kaylin drops from a 3 to a 2 overall. Now let's talk about Sam, who last week also had an average of 2, with myself, Brent, and Melissa all giving her 2s. The audience gave her a 3. So I'm interested to see where we go from here. Brent, let's start with you.
Oh, you all can come for me if you want. I gave her a 4. I gave her a 2 last week, and I'm giving her a 4 this week. And she hasn't done a ton to advance herself. And I know that she's probably everyone's number 1 target going into next week. But I feel good about the way she's played the game. And look, I'm being honest. So some of my personal bias is coming into play here. I love Sam. I think she's great. I hope she wins HOH and really throws everyone for a curveball. And she has a couple of strong alliances. Again, I don't know how these guys are going to do it. If they win HOH, stop coming for me, Stacked. I don't know how these guys are going to, the pretty boys I'm talking about, I don't know how they're going to do it when they come for Sam. What is Adam going to say? Are they, again, I hear all these people talking about the fact that they are going to come for Sam. I am not convinced that any of them will have the balls to do it. And if they do have the balls to do it, then they are shooting themselves in the foot moving forward in the game. How is Anthony going to go after Sam and explain that to Adam? How is Dane going to do that? How is Esty going to do that after she just promised the world to her? So I feel like she's actually okay right now. I give her a 4. Sorry.
All right, Melissa, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I'm actually in agreement with Brent. I gave her 4 too, or I'm giving her 4 right now. Because I do think that she's in a better position than she was last week. I feel like last week I also was a little biased because she was sitting there saying that she was going to give up her game for Adam and she was over it. She wanted him to win. She didn't care about winning. And I do feel like the attitude in her is a little different now. So I appreciate that. And also the fact that last week it was like, whoever wins, we're getting rid of her. But I agree with Brent that now we've got some people who would protect her, or who would maybe feel a little guilty going after her this week and be like, it's too soon. We need to figure something else out. Like we'll be, discovered if we do that, whatever. So I do think that she is in a better position than she was last week. I don't think she's in the clear by any means, but I do think she's in a better position. So
I am definitely lower on Sam than you guys. I have increased confidence in her ability to play the game than I had last week, but her position in the game for me has gone down. She is easily the biggest target and most likely person to leave next week, in my view. I did give her a higher rating than last time when we gave her a 2. I gave her a 3 this week, but I'm not quite ready for a 4. I feel like I would reserve a 4 for somebody that I felt like had more legs in the game here. Something will need to shake up majorly, in my opinion, in order for Sam to survive, not only next week, but if she manages to survive next week, just keep surviving forward in the game. That thing may come in a twist that changes everything, but beyond that, I really am having a tough time finding her way out of this whole mess. So I went with a 3. The audience, though, agreed with the two of you and gave her a 4. So there
Excellent. You go. Yes. And then last week the audience gave Sam a 2. Or didn't? I'm sorry. No, a 3. They gave her a 3 last week. Sorry.
All right.
They went up. They went up. See? So yeah, I'm not so crazy, chat.
Next up is Adam. Let's talk about Adam. Melissa, what are your thoughts here on Adam?
It's hard because I feel the same about him that I did last week. At
last
the same
week you gave him a 4.
Right. I feel similar. I do think that he's in a better position with the fact that he's now kind of aligned with Chelsea and Kira. I feel like that's good for him because he's still got the pretty boys on the side, and now he's got this sort of new alliance forming. But at the same time, I just don't really like the way he's playing the game. And so I don't really feel comfortable giving him a higher rating because I do still think that he's a big target. I think people are looking at him just like they're looking at Sam. And so I'm just going to stick with my 4.
All right, Brent, what do you think?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Last week I gave him a 3, and I have written down on my paper a 3. I'm trying to find a way to give him a 4, but I don't really feel like he's done anything that has, demonstrably improved his chances in the game. To me, he has gotten worse. Here's like the one good thing. Doom brought this up earlier in the chat, where I think it was Chelsea who mentioned that Eddie felt like Adam is a little bit unapproachable. So immediately, Adam goes to Eddie and starts chatting. And is like, hey, let's talk. And they have, a half-hour conversation where they're, talking about the game, talking about life, and he's trying to bond with them. So that's good. I mean, at least, basically has to be hit on the head to do something. But other than that, I feel like he's pretty unapproachable within the game. And I feel like his positioning is suspect. Yes, Sam is there, but I do feel like he's like the 1A target right behind Sam. The boys would protect him, but on the other hand, if one of them is on the block with Adam, then what are they going to do? So, like, if Sam wins the veto, like, Mark goes up in her place, Adam is gone to me. So, I do feel like his positioning is okay, but not great. You know what? I don't like the guy. I give him a 3.
There you go. Yet again, I guess I find myself, higher on Adam than the two of you, and also, in fact, the audience, which agreed with Melissa at least, and gave him a 4 once again. I'm lower than I was last week. My confidence in his ability to play the game has gone down from the week prior. Despite that, though, I just find his positioning to be good. I mean, Brent, you rated Samantha over Sam.
Yeah,
and I could not co-sign that personally, because I feel like she's the most likely person to leave next week. Whereas, we have Steph and Esty and Kiki just today talking about how much they want to work with Adam moving forward in the game. And he has the backup of the pretty boys. It's just, I hear you guys. I do think that his biggest issue right now, honestly, is less being a target and more how does he manage his end game? Because I do feel like he has some longevity here. Again, minus some kind of massive shakeup due to a twist, which honestly may be part of why I'm lowering this as well. But I am going to go with a 5 for Adam myself. I feel like he's maybe being a little bit underestimated, but that feels wrong to say. So,
Well, no, I think that's fair. I mean, he's generally unlikable. I don't think anybody who's a fan of Adam right now outside of his family. I'm trying to evaluate him fairly, but on the other hand, he just feels like somebody who, here's the thing. I don't see how somebody who is that big and that narcissistic can avoid detection in the Big Brother house. Anyway.
I just don't see a situation. I mean, I could see it, but I see a situation it's more likely to me that Sam moving forward finds ways to work with all the other people in the house and could find ends with those people. Whereas I don't necessarily see Adam working with other people in the house. I feel like he maintains his loyalty to the pretty boys, whereas Sam doesn't really have that tie. So I could see her being more malleable and able to work with all the other groups in the house. Whereas I don't necessarily see Adam doing that. Even if they want to work with him, I could see a situation where he's just kind of not doing it. So that's kind of also my thinking, is how I could see these people moving forward with the other people in the house.
Taryn, do you think that Adam will be Hoffman'd, as Jay Griff says in the chat in reference to Matt Hoffman from the Brigade? Will they get rid of him at any point?
Honestly, I feel like Mark is more likely in that spot. They have talked about him being untrustworthy. So yeah, because I feel like Damien and Adam for me are like two sides of the same coin, where Damien is really social, really likable. I feel like he has longevity because of his relationships, and the people don't want to go after him. But he has very little agency in the game, very little influence. His positioning is pretty terrible. Whereas Adam is this big target, this big threat. Everybody's looking at him. Socially, he's not great. But despite this, he's in a really great spot where he has good relationships with Corey, with now Esty and Kiki. He's got the pretty boys backing him up. And so, to me, they're both 5s for very different reasons. And, they could both, I think this is an unstable 5, that they could both go in either direction pretty dramatically, given anything that happens in the future. But there you go. Just to reiterate, the audience also gave Adam a 4. So he will be staying at a 4 here overall. Samantha, by the way, went up from 2 to 4. So if anyone bought into Samantha, that was a good investment.
Wow,
all right.
You doubled your money.
Yeah. So next we have Esty, who last week had an average of 5. I gave her a 5. Wow, this was all over the place. I gave her a 5, Brent a 3, Melissa a 4, and the audience a 6. So, wow, where do we fall on Esty now? Personally, I am more confident in Esty's ability than I was last week. She has ventured out from the twin sort of confinement. I do think that Kiki remains a bigger target in front of her. I do worry about her connection to Dane, although that may also be her saving grace, because I do think that Dane would help protect her from the pretty boys. So I am higher on Esty than I was previously. Not quite high enough to go beyond a 6, but I am going to land here at a 6 for Esty. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on a 6 because I do feel like she's in a better position than she was last week. I feel more confident about her. She did really well in the HOH, so it's clear that she's a good competitor. And I mean, which also might not be good to show that to people, but it doesn't seem like people are really, stuck on that. Also the fact that Kiki is clearly a bigger threat in front of her. People are a little bit more nervous about Kiki than they are about Esty. And the fact that it seems like her and Dane have, a special relationship is good for her, because I also feel like we said earlier, Dane is most likely to break off from the Pretty Boys and go with his side alliance over the Pretty Boys. So I could feel like that could help Esty out in the long run. So yeah, that's why.
I mean, I feel a little bit better about her game, but I gave her a 3 last week. I'm gonna give her a 4 this week. I feel like that she might have big move-itis and that she has no clue about what her overall game might be. To me, her overall game is 0. I don't see much of one there. She just wants to make a big move and get Sam out, or like, oh, I can't wait to backstab them, and ooh, can't wait for this. But like, what is your plan beyond that? I guess there is something to be taken into account in that she does have Dane now. So I gave her a 3 last week, so I'm giving her a better score than I did last week. But I'm not convinced. That's where I'm coming from.
There you go. I mean, personally, I just for me, it's that Esty has the likability of Damien, but the protection of the Pretty Boys, and so she's just a little bit higher than Damien in my estimation. But the audience actually was lower than they were last week. I was actually surprised to see this as I just looked over here just a second ago. She got a 5 from the audience last week, a 6, but down to a 5 this week. So Melissa and I went up, and the audience went down. In fact, all of us went up, but the audience went down. So I think Esty is going to end up with a 5 here. She's not going to move. All right. Next up is Kiki. Let's start with you, Brent. How do you feel about Kiki? Last week, she averaged out at a 3. I gave her a 3. Brent, you gave her a 2. Melissa, you gave her a 3. The audience was at a 5 for Kiki last week. So how do you feel about Kiki this week, Brent?
I gave her a 3. I'm giving her a marginally better score than what I gave her last week. I feel like, 1s and 2s are for people who are going home. I don't feel like she's going home anytime soon, but she could be. Chelsea and Sam, they don't feel great about Kiki. She would be somebody that they would target. I also feel like that if anybody else looked at this group as a whole, Kiki would also be the person that would go home. Even if Dane somehow ended up on the block, the Pretty Boys would save him and send home Kiki. If anybody of this Trinomite ended up on the block. I'm not going to use that word. I just wanted to say it one time. I give her a 3.
Melissa?
Yeah, I feel better about her this week than I did last week. Last week I gave her a 3, so I'm going to give her a 4 this week. She was on the block. There was a chance that she could have stayed on the block and gone home. We don't know. But also the fact that people see her as a bigger threat than they do Esty. That's concerning for her game. I'm a little worried about the fact that she's not willing to really befriend Mark when she should be befriending everyone possible at this point in time. So I'm a little worried about that. Especially it makes me a little nervous for her long-term game. Because as it gets towards the end, there's going to be people there that you don't really like or don't want to hang out with, and you're going to have to just suck it up and do it. And it doesn't really seem like she's willing to do that. Or at least makes it very clear while you're hanging out with her that she's like not having it and is not having a good time talking with you, which is not good for her. However, I do feel more confident in her gaming ability. Like when I hear her talking with Esty, I do feel I see the strategy in there. Whereas last week I was a little like, is she even going to play? Like what's going on? So I do feel better about her, but I am a little concerned because she is the target in front of Esty.
I do feel like Taryn, that she's like Twitter incarnate, where like the people on Twitter like see her like going like, oh, like this gross guy keeps trying to hang out with me and touch me, and I'm like, oh, I can't stand it. And I'm like, the people on Twitter are like, yes, queen, yes, give it to him, But in reality, it's a social game, and you can't act like a total ass when he is in the room trying to hang on you. You got to find some way to navigate that, and she can't seem to do that. So it's the real world versus how we would like it to be, and Twitter isn't the real world. So what'd you give her, Taryn?
I did go up on Kiki, but it was barely made it up from a 3 last week to give her a 4 this week. My confidence in her as a player has not gone up. If anything, it's gone down. She's finally playing the game, which puts her in a better spot than she was previously. But what I've seen in her when she plays the game has not been super promising. I don't like the way that she's talking with Chelsea. I don't like how she gets caught up in some things, refusing to name targets, really, makes her look shady. Dealing with the situation with Mark, trusting in Dane so much, the fact that she is definitely going to be targeted over SD at the moment. So really, the reason she has gone up is that she is now more involved in the game. I do think that she is a little more protected by Dane. And last week, I was looking at her as one of the potential people to be evicted. This week, she has survived. So I think that, grants her a stay of execution. And now she's not even looking like one of the more likely people to leave next week, even though I do think she's still in the conversation. So I have gone up to a 4. The audience went down from a 5 to a 4 on Kiki. So she is going to average out on $4, and that's up from 3. So Kiki, another good investment here. All right. Next, let's talk about Dane.
I just realized I haven't given anybody higher than a 4, and we've gone through 7 people.
Brent's rating so far: 4, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 3.
It's like Celebrity Big Brother all over again.
Christina, who just posted in the chat here, that posted on Twitter that this was actually last week was very low in terms of average player ratings. It was actually on par with Celebrity Big Brother. Not quite as low as the lowest of Celebrity Big Brother, but still not super high. I wonder if that's going to continue with all of these low ratings here. She also just posted in the chat here, 142 Kiki shares between the Reddit and RHAP patron groups were bought this week. It was the highest by a lot. 42% of players bought at least one share of Kiki. So some people are making some money here. All right.
Barely. Wow. Yeah. Dane, I gave him a 4 last week, and I do feel marginally better about his game overall. And I say this to you coming from a totally social standpoint. Here's the thing. I know that he's an idiot. He has an earnestness about him that I do think is contagious. But on the other hand, he's going for Sam to the point. I don't know what happens after Sam. I do feel like he's sort of like a lovable oaf that really has no chance to win the game whatsoever. But I do feel like the people like him and want to keep him around. I don't feel like they're really threatened by him. I'm trying to think of somebody who would put him up on the block maybe as a replacement but I do feel like the pretty boys would save him. So I feel good about his overall game this week. I don't like giving people 5s because I feel like it's the ultimate Fancy Fincerton, but I am going to give him a 5.
All right. Personally, as much as I love to make fun of Dane for his Sam obsession, which I do think is easily his biggest weakness in the game, and it is pretty annoying at most times, his position in the game has increased from last week, in my opinion. My confidence in him as a player, not necessarily increased, but just looking at where he stands now, he had a pretty disastrous HOH when you really come to terms with it. He had a target. He did not get that target out. It was a tie vote. He broke it against, the way that a lot of his closer allies went. And yet he is still just completely off the radar. He did enter the Chelsea Sam radar briefly, but Adam and Anthony were able to smooth that over, and now they feel relatively good about Dane again, which means that Dane is in good with that group. He's in good with Esty and Kiki, who are probably the biggest threats to the pretty boys, and so the fact that he is good with them is huge for him. He's still protected by the pretty boys. He has good relationships with everybody else. He's gone completely back under the radar after a very crazy HOH week, and you have to give him some credit for that. He's still pretty well liked by the house. It's just hard to see where he fails at this point, despite this obsession with Sam. And maybe once he gets Sam out, he'll be a better player. Who knows? I gave him a 6. I did. I went up from last week when I gave him a 5. So
see, the chat was coming for me for giving Dane a 5, and Taryn went up to a 6. Take that, y'all.
I did my best to justify it there. Melissa, what did you think?
Yeah, it's tough for me to rate him this week because I feel like his HOH went really poorly, and that was between the time that we rated previously and now. So like originally his rating went down for me during his HOH, and the fact that he had to break that tie, and it was just such a bad, just not a great scenario for him. But now I feel like he's done well to bring himself back up to where he was, if not maybe a little higher. And I feel like he's getting in good with different groups, and it seems to be working well for him. But I feel like the fact that he went down earlier in the week and then went up kind of levels it out to back where he originally started the week. So I'm just going to stick with my 5.
All right. The audience also stuck with their 5 for Dane. So Dane is going to end up here with a 5. Once again, no movement on Dane. Let's talk about Anthony. Anthony, last week I gave him a 6. Brent was at a 4, Melissa a 5, and the audience a 6. So, be very interesting to see where Anthony goes from here, because I feel like he's gone way up. I feel like he's maybe gone back down in some people's estimation. Personally, I am going to give Anthony the highest rating of the house of the week for me, which is a 7. I feel a lot more confident in his ability to play the game well. There are some things that I'm very concerned about that we talked about a lot. I don't necessarily like, this is not Tyler, where I was giving him 9s, 8s, 9s pretty consistently because I felt very confident in him. This is not that. This is more along the lines of somebody like Pauly, who he's kind of running the house right now, but I don't feel the same way that I do about some of those other people. So 7 is going to be the height of the house for now, and I do feel like Anthony has a lot of potential in this game. It's really just a matter of whether he can hone that into something useful versus this sort of thing that goes to his head and he becomes power crazy and goes nuts. Something that we haven't really talked about yet is that Chelsea and Kira are very much on to the fact that Anthony is playing this sort of mentor role. It's not as disastrous as it sounds because they still want to work with him. They're just a little bit not completely under his spell, which is so he's not doing as well as we thought he was, but that doesn't mean he's doing poorly necessarily. Also, problem is here for Chelsea is that she went and told Adam about these suspicions, and I have a feeling that's going to do something. We don't know yet what we don't know yet what it's going to be, but even just a little bit of doubt of Anthony has probably going to go right back to Anthony. So we'll see where that goes. But 7 for me. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you on your logic. I had given him a 5 before, and I feel like throughout the week I was really high on what he was doing. I thought he was doing a great job and really, pulling that sort of Derek manipulation tactic where it's you're convincing them of things, but they're thinking it's their idea and that sort of thing. So I was pretty high on him, but then I just feel like it's a little too much too soon. And I'm worried for him because I think people are I think people are starting to catch on, and some people are actually catching on. So I feel like I went way up to a 7, then went back down a little bit after seeing some of his antics. So I'm going to give him a 6.
All right, Brent.
Yeah, I want to give him a 7, but I'm going to give him a 6, and here's why. For all the reasons I like him that you said, Taryn, I think his positioning in the house is absolutely wonderful. I feel like he has 2 shields in front of him, no matter which way you look. However, it was in that conversation with Kira where he basically was like a little kid in a classroom where something like the teacher goes out of the classroom, all hell breaks loose in the class. The teacher comes back into the classroom and says, "What the hell happened? Joey," or they say, "Anthony, what the hell happened?" Anthony's just there with a grin on his face, I can't tell you. Like he like the fact that he's doing well in the game, I do feel like is inflating his ego a little bit, and it's impacting his social bonds with other people to the point where he's absolutely incapable of, like, it's like he has a secret and he just wants to tell people, like, I've got you all snowed right now and you're just falling for it. So I feel like that's going, like, the chickens are going to come home to roost in that aspect of his personality. So I end up giving him a 6.
All right. The audience also went with a 6, which means Anthony is going to go from 5 to 6. An increase in price there for Anthony.
I feel like he deserves a 7, but like I feel like I'm Kirsten McKinnis, right? I don't know what it is about Anthony, but there's something about him.
Christina in the chat says, for reference, Tyler, Brett, and Haley had prices of 7 and over in week 2 of Big Brother 20. So really, I feel like that was pretty spot on, except we were off on Haley and under on JC, in my opinion.
Oh my God. Like, I'm remembering the days of Big Brother 20 where I gave out a 10 to Tyler, y'all. And look at what I'm like trying to, like, I barely can reach a 5 or a 6 with these people in the house.
I just feel like we haven't seen enough yet here. I feel like we saw more from people in that season, and I feel like we're not seeing as much here to give us that confidence. I feel like I saw a lot more discussions between certain people where I could see the strategy and I could see the end goal and I could see the way they could make it to the end. And for these, I'm kind of like, it could go either way. Sometimes they're saying things that I like and sometimes they're not. And so I don't feel as great about all of their game ability. And that kind of brings people down for me.
It doesn't help that the people running the house are deeply flawed players. So it's like the players that we feel best about are hindered by the fact that the pretty boys are running the show and the pretty boys are hindered by themselves. So, you know. Yeah. Evens out a little bit.
I mean, if we saw, like, if, say, for example, like Chelsea and like Esty and Anthony were like controlling the house, or they were like in charge of like 2 different factions or something, I feel like I would be giving them way higher ratings. But I feel like they are being sucked into this like pretty boy gaming system.
Blinded by the pretty.
It really is. It's just like, it feels different to me. So it's hard for me to sit there like, give him a 7, because things could change so quickly. Just if the pretty boys are like, no, we're going to get Esty out this week. Like, we're just going to get Chelsea out this week or whatever, like whoever they pick, you know, we're at their mercy essentially. So, you know, I don't trust them to play good games. So.
Yes. All right. Brent, let's talk about Mark. He got straight 5s last week. How do you feel about him this week?
I'm giving you, these are my gut reactions. I have them down here, and I see no reason to change. I give Mark a 3. I know it sounds like I'm being tough on him, but this is really one where this is just my gut instinct. I don't feel like he is a good person socially. I feel like he's cocky. He likes to tell people how smart he is. He likes to say things that show how smart he is. I feel like he doesn't have, he's not able to read the room with other people. And so I do feel like he would be someone that people just don't naturally bond with. I think I hate to say, like, I don't want to pick on Joel from BB4, but your analogy that he is like Joel in that he's seen as a little shifty in the house. And there are many people who they're not, even people who are generally aligned with him or even like him, I feel like that they are not into the mark of it all. So I gave him a 3, and, you know, I'm looking at the other people I gave a 3 to, and I guess it was Adam and Kiki. I do feel like Mark is about at that place. I mean, I guess you could say, well, his position is better than them because, you know, he's not the first one of the pretty boys to be targeted, and he does have them as a shield, but I just don't think he's going to do well. I'm going to stick with my 3.
Yeah, he's a little bit like the Matt Hoffman of the Pretty Boys, except he isn't the one that like helped organize everything. He doesn't have like the brains of Matt Hoffman, and also he doesn't have the social game of Matt Hoffman. He doesn't have his Reagan or his Britney either. So like he's kind of just like the really terrible version of Matt Hoffman in this
really
group.
Terrible version of Matt Hoffman. Like, and people say sometimes, I think I was on a Life Eats update where they're like, I don't even notice Mark on the feed. Like, I notice Mark on the feeds. He's just like, when he's there, I don't feel like he's doing anything necessarily productive, and he's making everybody aware of the fact that he's a pretty smart guy, at least book smarts.
Yes, I did though go with a 4 here for Mark. Not
you went
quite
down as well.
Yes, I did go down from last week. I definitely feel like he has shown himself to not be a particularly good player. He is the lowest of the pretty boys here for me, in the sense that I have the least amount of confidence in his ability to win the game. He is talked of as a target. I don't think he will go home. I think the pretty boys can protect him, again, barring any kind of twist. I think he's safe in that regard. He has some longevity in the game. That's why he has a 4 from me. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in him, and I think that he will have to do something to change his social game if he wants to like really have influence and win in the end. So
he's an ass, Melissa, don't you think?
I just feel like he struggles socially. I don't think that, to have people already not liking you, like most people not liking you and not want to be around you, I feel like that's like the kiss of death in Big Brother. And I feel like he's not going to have people coming to him, bringing him alliances, wanting to work with him. He's lucky he got in the pretty boys to begin with, because now he at least has that. But at the same time, I do feel like he's the most expendable member of the pretty boys, and I could see them turning on him first if they have to turn on anyone, just being like, get him out of here. These guys, I just feel like the other 3 are the solid 3, whereas he's kind of on the outs. And so I don't feel very good about his game long term, and I also don't see a situation where he could potentially leave the pretty boys and then do well socially throughout the house with other people, or like
that is a good point. Yes, I do feel like he is marooned where he is right now.
Right. And I could see a situation for the other pretty boys to join up with other people. So I could see if for whatever reason Dane gets kicked out of the pretty boys, I absolutely see him blending in well with another group, no problem. Same with Anthony, same with Adam. So I don't see that with Mark, and that concerns me. So I'm going to give Mark a 3.
How much better would the pretty boys be if Damien was in the place of Mark?
Oh, yes. Well,
right?
But Marge,
I think it would be better, but I think people like Damien because he's not in the pretty boys.
True.
So I feel like if you then add him to the pretty boys, it's like, oh God, get him out of here.
I do feel like Damien is generally likable, though. I'm certain he would be hated if he was part of the pretty boys, but it would still be a better group of people overall. And honestly, thinking about it, probably the reason he wasn't included was because he went in early and ended up coming into the house late, because Adam was so jumping the gun on approaching people that he'd probably approached everyone by the time Damien even entered the house. So interesting how that goes. The audience was with you guys. The audience gave Mark a 3. Woo-hoo! So he goes down from a 5 to a 3. Let's talk about Kira.
Man,
Melissa.
I'm on point with every audience rating except for Seth or SD. So, we'll see about Kira. But,
We'll see about Kira. Last week, Kira had straight 2s from us, a 3 from the audience. Melissa, how do you feel about them this week?
I actually feel better about Kira this week than I did last week. I don't feel great about them, but I feel better because I feel like I kind of thought they were out the door last week. And now they've stuck around. They've also kind of joined up with a little group, whereas I feel like before they would have been targeted pretty quickly and easily because it's just an easy out. Like, okay, they were already targeted before. Let's just do it again. It's not a big deal. They're not really connected with anyone, so it's not a big deal. Now I feel like they are kind of connected. I do feel like they struggle socially a little, which concerns me. But sometimes I watch them talking and having conversations, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like they seem cool and they seem fine, and then other times I don't get that vibe. So I feel like with Mark, I feel like I haven't seen this conversation where I've been like, this went great. But for Kira, I have felt that. So I'm feeling a little better about Kira's social ability than I do with Mark. But at the same time, I don't feel great about where they are in the house or their ability to play or their ability to, I just feel like their one connection right now is Chelsea. And if Chelsea decides like, okay, this is too much of a liability, they're screwed. So I feel better, but I don't feel great. So I'm going to give Kira a 3.
Yeah, I agree. I gave them a 3 as well. And I feel like that if they could ever get their head out of their ass and stop, paying attention to whatever Chelsea wants, then maybe they might actually be able to make a run at this because they have the game knowledge to be able to do something with it, but they don't know what to do with it at this point. It's almost like the game knowledge that Kira has is totally irrelevant to their fascinations with Chelsea. So if that ever changes, then I'm willing to give them a higher score. But right now, I only feel marginally better just by virtue of the fact that of the people who are currently targeted in the house, I do not think that Kira is one of them. So positioning wise, things have improved, but socially wise, I don't feel great. In fact, I feel pretty miserable overall. I'm actually kind of stunned that Kira is not making bonds with some of the more oddballs in the house. Like, why isn't Kira having more conversations with Eddie?
Yeah, you would think that would be first priority, especially if they feel like they're kind of on the outs with that original group.
And maybe it's Eddie. I'm not blaming Kira totally. I mean, maybe it's Eddie that doesn't want to have a relationship with Kira. I don't know, but I give them a 3. Sorry.
Yeah, I considered going with a 2 for Kira. Just they're so bad at the game.
So bad.
Every time they try to do something, it's just disastrous. And
but
socially,
they have a good read though.
Yes, and that's really their saving grace. Is there's 2 saving graces. They're so bad at the game, and everyone sees how bad at the game they are, which makes them so non-threatening. I think that they have such longevity in this game. They are the kind of player that should have longevity, but might screw it up for themselves. That said, it really shouldn't be that way. There's no reason to target Kira. There are so many bigger targets in the house. On top of that, they do have some decent, I think this comes from their game knowledge, some decent reads in the house. They were the first person to really catch on to Anthony. They spoke with Chelsea about it, and Chelsea kind of caught on at that point. They have some reads, but at the same time, they have also some bad reads regarding Kiki. It's not great overall, but it's not terrible either. So really,
it's on the cusp.
Yes, I kind of see them as the other side of the Samantha coin, where like Sam, I feel like is going to be targeted very soon. But if things change and she manages to somehow survive, then I think she might have a shot. Whereas Kira, I think, is not going to be targeted soon, but has a tougher road to like win the game. So I went with a 3 here for Kira, as did the audience. Straight 3s for Kira, who goes up from a 2 last week because somehow they were in an even worse position last week. Right. Hey, they're not on the block this week. They're not going home.
Not on the block. That's good. And not
Something.
being targeted by anybody. That's good. I know Eddie apparently is. I didn't see this on the feeds that Eddie has talked about targeting Kira, but I do feel like that the way the house ends up next week, that Eddie will have bigger fish to fry. But we'll see.
Yeah, it would just like there's no reason to target Kira. They're just not a threat. All right, so let's talk about Eddie, who got straight 6s last week.
Woo, baby. You bought Eddie. Girl, we got problems. I'll start. Go ahead.
You want to start?
Well, no, go ahead. Yeah, you were going.
I still feel good about Eddie as a player. I like what I'm seeing from him post Kaylin backdoor. I haven't seen a lot of it yet, though, because it just happened. And before that happened, I didn't like what I was seeing because he changed his vote at the last minute, which really degraded some trust that some people had in him. He's not been maintaining his relationships. He's been really focusing on Kira. I don't like any of these, on Kaylin. I don't like any of these things. So I'm definitely going to go down from a 6. It's a matter of how far down. I think I'm going to land at a 5. I still have faith in Eddie as a player, especially if Kaylin leaves this week. He is a potential target in the coming weeks, but I do think there are bigger fish to fry than Eddie. And if he survives and Kaylin is gone and he has to work his own magic, I want to see where that goes. I like I said, I think he has good game instincts. I think he is very good at giving the right persona, talking to people in the right way. It's just a matter of how much effort he's putting in. So hopefully he puts in more effort in the future. I land at a 5. Brent, what do you think?
I mean, I really hammered him. I gave him a 3, and by virtue of the fact that he has no real bonds with anybody except the woman who happens to be going out the door. That's not a winning Big Brother strategy. Add to that the fact that he knew the way the vote was going to go last week. I mean, from to hear me tell it, I feel like he did know the way the vote was going to go and still voted the wrong way. I was all over Twitter going, how the hell does this happen when you like I have faith in him as a player. I mean, I gave him a good score last week. Like, I felt good about him, and he knows the game. You know the vote's going this way. How did you let Kaylin talk you into that? Why did you vote that way? I mean, I at least understand Damian, because Damian wants to do what Damian wants to do, regardless of the fact that it might be good strategy. But Eddie knew better. So what are you doing? I do feel like that there's a good chance that not a great chance, but a good chance that he could be a potential nominee this coming week. And when you're on the nominee block, that's never good. Cliche much, but it's true. And he doesn't have anybody who'd be fighting for him. At least even somebody like Sam would have 2 people fighting for who the hell is fighting for Eddie? So Taryn, I don't share your faith in him. I feel like we were sold a bill of goods with him coming in the house. There's not much here. It's a 3 for me.
All right, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Eddie this week as I was last week. I still think that he has a chance of doing well, but it just seems like this week he kind of fell off the wagon. And the fact that he is all alone cuts both ways. I feel like it could be seen as like he's forgettable and he doesn't really matter. Like, why waste an HOH trying to get out Eddie when you could get out a big target? But at the same time, it's an easy target. So, you know, if someone doesn't want to rock the boat and they want to just get someone out who no one really cares about, then you just go for Eddie. So I'm a little worried for him. I do think that if Kaylin goes out, it's much better for his game. And it does seem like she is going out. So that will be good for his game. But I still don't feel great. So I'm going to give him a 4.
All right. The audience was actually with me on this one. The audience gave him a 5, which will probably drop him to a 4.
Yep.
Yeah. So down from a 6 to a 4, what is likely at least. So next up, let's talk about Corey, who had straight 5s. This is the final person here. Straight 5s last week. But how do we feel about Corey this week, Melissa? What do you think?
I feel the same. I'm just going to give her a 5 again. I just feel like about the same as I did last week.
Yeah, but that's the problem. I feel the same. She hasn't done anything in the house to really further herself. And so I feel like by definition, I have to give her a worse score. Another week has gone by. Who the hell is she getting close to? Who the hell is fighting for Corey? No one. No one's fighting for Corey, at least that I can tell. So I give her 4.
I feel similarly in the sense that I am also going to give her a 5 because I feel like she has made a little bit of progress. She is progressing her relationships with people like Adam, Sam, Chelsea. She has also bonded a little more with Damian. So like she is making some progress. She's also bonding with Anthony, which I think is very important. But it's not a ton of progress. It's kind of like running in place, preventing herself from falling behind, which is not too bad. So, you know, I almost really went with a 6, but I decided that was too much. Too much. I don't have enough faith in her yet. I haven't seen enough from her to warrant that.
I also feel like she's someone easily that you can just throw up on the block. Like, you have a target in mind. Who else am I going to nominate? Who the hell? Oh, let's do Corey, you know.
Well, the audience did, in fact, go up to a 6 for Corey. So they are the highest of all of us here on Corey. Corey is going to remain at 5 overall, though. So there you go. There is the stock watch, the ratings. But let's now talk about the purchases that we made last week and see if anyone made the right purchase, which was Sam, who went up $2 overall. We also had, I think, Kira, Kiki also went up, and then people like Esty. Esty stayed the same. Who went down? Mark went down. Eddie went down. So there are some bad choices too.
Damian went down.
Yes. We'll start with me here. We have a whole tab that will hopefully load properly.
What did you do, Taryn?
What did I do? I bought 10 shares of Kira. last week. I went all in, and when I saw that it was a tie vote, I was very nervous.
That is a risky move, Taryn.
It was a risky move, but I was hoping that it would pay off. They were very cheap, and I knew that if they did survive, there was a good chance the price would go up. So I went 10 in on Kira, and Kira has increased in value by $1. So I have made $10 on the Kira purchase. Ooh. So I feel pretty good about that. If I'd gone with Sam, that would have been better. If any of you went with Sam, I'm going to be upset. Next up, let's look at Brent. Brent, what did you do here?
Taryn, I'm just as smart as you, so of course I did the same thing. Yeah, I bought 10 shares of Kira. Actually, I asked my Twitter followers what should I do, and this was actually the one that was least voted on by people. Basically, people just told me to sit in place and hold my money because the house is too freaking crazy. I did not do that. And I, like you, when I saw, I think it was Matt Lagori who tweeted first about the fact that it was a tie. And I was like, what? And then I saw, because who knows what happened? Like, how did if things, here's the thing. Usually when the numbers don't come in how we think they're going to come in, it usually goes the other way. Like I would have thought in that instance that Kira would have gone home. So the fact that the numbers came in by far different than what I thought they were going to be, and yet still I got the result that I wanted, I was aghast. So yeah, I bought 10 shares of Kira, and I also made $10.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this format is that buying one of the nominees will probably net you a little bit of profit in the next week as long as they stay. But it's the riskiest thing you can do because you might lose that money. Risky. You gotta take risks to make money. Melissa,
I felt like here's the thing. Before Melissa says her picks, I felt like, and I'm sure you've probably felt this way too, Taryn, that given that it was the first thing of the season, the first buy of the season, I felt like it was the right time to risk it. Like you have to risk it to get the biscuit, because if I screw it up and Kira somehow goes home, then I can still know I have to be a little bit more aggressive as time moves on to try to make up for the fact that I just screwed myself out of $20. But luckily that didn't happen.
There you go. Melissa, what did you do here?
I bought 10 Kira as well. No, I'm just kidding. I did not.
I was like, oh my God, there's a mistake on the form.
Whoa. No. I bought 2 SD and 2 Anthony. Everyone told me not to diversify my portfolio, and I tried not to, but so by stacking, I at least stacked a little, but I had to do more than one person. I just, that's too risky for me. But yeah, I chose SD and Anthony, and I felt like, I feel like I'm happy with my choices. I'm a little disappointed that SD didn't go up in the ratings, but at least Anthony did. And I do think that if we had done this a little earlier in the week, Anthony would have gone up higher, way higher. But
if we had roundtable Saturday night,
yeah, now it's a little different
across the board.
But at the time, I was like, all right, we got this. Oh well, I still netted a profit, so at least I didn't go down. But yeah.
Yes, you did.
There you go. Yeah. So SD stays the same. No, no losses, no profit. Anthony went up by $1, I believe, and so with 2 shares, Melissa made $2. So her total portfolio worth is 22 versus Brent and myself have now 30 because we made $10 on Kira. But that doesn't mean we don't have that in cash yet. This, they could go back down. We could still lose everything. It's just how much you're worth right now. That's the stock market for you.
And just to be clear about this, the fact that I have that in currently in Kira, I have to. So what's the rule about how much cash we can have on hand? I guess that's what I'm asking. What is that rule?
You still can only have 20. Like you could the max amount you can have at any time going into a round is 40. So you need to spend enough to be down to at least 20, or you won't get the full benefit of the $20 you get per week.
Okay.
But that's not cash in hand, is it? You having Kira. Right?
Right,
no,
that's what I'm
cash
saying.
In hand. Yeah, it's just in my portfolio. So what
but if you were to sell it,
if I were to sell it, right,
I
would.
Okay.
Right,
if you sold it, you would have to put it into somebody else.
Yeah, I would have to put it into somebody. I couldn't just keep it as my money.
Yeah.
So okay, so just to be clear, like, so I like, I'm sorry to ask a meaningful question like this, but like, so if I had done nothing, would that have been okay, or I would have had to have done something?
It would have been okay this week because you could have gotten another $20, and then you would have had 40, and that would have been your limit. And if you had done nothing again, the next week you would not have received $20, and that would count as a $20 loss.
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
So there you go. So Brent and I did all right. Melissa did okay too. She didn't lose any.
Didn't lose any.
Karen.
Now, is Rob doing this with us, or what is happening with that?
I have not heard a word yet, but if he does, we will make sure to include him in here as well. And check out Christina Z on Twitter, where she has been following the Reddit and the patron group Stock Watch as well. So she can give you information on what they're buying and what's going on there. So fun stuff.
Rob is not doing it, Alexandra tells me in the chat. So it's just the three of us. So I just got to beat you two to retain my crown.
Better odds for Brent. All right. So further questions here on the form. I asked, how would you rate the episodes of Big Brother Canada this week? The audience gave it a 5.8. for the episodes. Not super high on the episodes this week. This is down from a 6.4 last week. So people are starting to feel less good about the show, at least.
Yeah, I was a little let down from what we got from the episode, because I heard there was a big fight and Kaylin got into it with Dane, and I don't feel like we got much. I would have liked more.
Yeah, there were episodes I didn't mind, actually. The first Sunday one I was pretty okay with, but I guess that was part of the other one. So there were some things I didn't like the gagging.
Yeah, but gagging was good. But I liked a good have-not competition, though. I love a have-not competition.
I
hated this one. You're right.
But this was I didn't like it. It's just watching people throw up for like way too long. It just all seems like filler recently in these episodes. It just seems like a lot of filler material where I feel like there is enough to make a fun, exciting narrative, and instead they're choosing to show us like throw up and like stupid lines and stuff like that. It's just like,
There's a GIF of Damien like barfing up. Like I think he was gonna burp, but then something came up and it just went like, oh, I know, right. Oh, it was too funny.
Personally, I feel like I am of the opinion that we don't need a competition every episode. I don't know why the show thinks that we do. So, what are you gonna do?
The competitions are my least favorite part in Big Brother and Survivor.
We haven't had a good.
And here's the thing.
Fast forward through them.
Yeah, Big Brother Canada has great competitions, and still, like most of the time, I would prefer to just like. Okay.
Right. Like, yeah, that's the thing is like, even with Big Brother Big Brother US, like, oh, for sure, I want to fast forward through the competitions because they're just so lame. But Big Brother Canada, they have great competitions. But even then, it's like, okay, I don't need a giant montage of like sitting on somebody like puking up food for like 10 minutes at a time. It's like, that's too much. They could have done a quick like, oh, it's tough to eat it, oh god, now let's move on to the next person. But instead we're like literally watching them throw up.
I'll just say really quickly, we haven't had a food competition, Taryn, on like Big Brother US since like forever. So it was 15? Like it felt like old school Big Brother to me. Like it felt really, really fun. I was here for it.
Yeah, I like the big HOH competition because there's tension there. Big Brother Canada does it well. Vetoes can be good too, but I prefer those to be shorter because sometimes there's not very much tension. And then anything beyond that, have not things and like questions about Wendy's, like whatever.
No, don't eat it.
So how would you rate the feeds this week? It is a 5.7, so even lower than the episodes here. Last week it was a 6.5. People are really starting to sour, at least on this week. We'll see how it goes moving forward. I have to imagine some of this, I know for me, some of this was this impending twist is really just kind of like, I tweeted this out, like sapped my like excitement over like I don't even care really what's going on because it's like this might be completely irrelevant, and hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's not too bad.
Yep.
But
hopefully it's not the case.
Yeah. So I wanted to know if you ranked your players from your favorite to your least favorite. Last week, I asked this, and Eddie was in the lead. What do you guys think happened this time? Do you think Eddie's still in the lead, Melissa?
No.
I don't think so.
Who do you think is got the top spot?
I wonder.
I don't know, actually.
Oh, I feel like it's Este and Damien.
It is Esty, followed by Damien.
Ah!
Brent is on the money.
Wow, good job, Brent.
There you go. Pretty close. And then very, very close behind Damien as well is Eddie. And then again, very, very close behind Eddie is Chelsea. And those four make up the clear top four. And then we have Kira, Corey, Anthony, Dane, and then down in the lower elements here, Sam, Mark, Adam, Kaylin, and finally Kira in the last and final spot.
Yes, thank you, chat. I am the real psychic, not Kira.
I already went over who Chelsea should have targeted and whether you were for or against. Who are you voting for to receive the twist of footage? What do you guys think? Do you have a prediction for this one, Brent?
I think it'll be Kiki.
Yep.
Kiki. Do we have a guess on who's in second place?
Well, I was campaigning for Chelsea, but people really hated that idea because they feel like she'll just help the boys.
I think she would, for the record.
Este. I would say Este is in second.
Wasn't Iga campaigning for Sam?
Yes.
Yeah, because then Sam would see that that Adam was flirting with other girls. That was the.
Yeah, Mackie's campaigning for Kaylin, but that ain't gonna do anything. Come on.
Kiki is in fact in first place here with 26% of people saying Kiki, followed by 19% saying Damien. And then behind Damien at 12% is Esty and another 12% for Eddie. And then Chelsea is behind that and so on and so forth. Are they voting
for Damien because they know he won't do anything with the information?
Perhaps. There were a lot of people that said, I would like an option for no voting. And I was like, you can't skip the question. And also you could have said against.
We tried that. They gave us that option with the save, his face, Ryan. From Big Brother Canada 6, and it was like 10%.
Yeah, Canada wouldn't.
Canada does not like to stay their hand. They like to use their power.
So this is interesting to me. It does seem like the live feeders in general seem to be supporting Kira for this. I don't know. Kiki. I don't know exactly what spawned this. I mean, Kiki is probably a good person to get it. I think that she would probably be pretty aggressive with the knowledge. I forgot to mention that if she does get it, I'm not super high on her chances in the game. I think that she will kind of go, a little crazy with it. But also Damien pretty close behind with the RHAP audience at least, and I have to think that Damien also has a lot of support from the show viewers. He's, I think, been on the screen a lot more than Kiki. I believe Kiki's only had a couple of confessionals.
Let me help you out. There's no way, I don't care how real this vote is, there's no way the Big Brother Canada producers are going to give it to Damien again after what he did, i.e. basically nothing with his first advantage. I mean, talk about a wet fart or a silent fart. That's a silent fart, sorry. This is not, it's like a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it. Did it really happen? Like, if Damien gets the power, what? Nothing's going to happen. He's already been in that room. Are you with me on this or not?
I mean, I see that I see that would be. I see that you're right in that. I don't know if they would, if he won it, would Canada be like, the producers be like, no, you're not getting it. But
I feel like they would.
I do think there's a difference though between like catching a tiny bit of a maybe conversation with these two guys that later turns out to not seem like it actually went through versus if he does get like real confirmation of like, hey, we're the pretty boys, we're playing everyone, he's gonna do something with that, I think.
Yes, I still feel like they'll want the ooh ah of them going into the room, and if it's Damien, it's just more of the same. There's no way he's gonna get it. Yes, I'm wearing my tinfoil hat. God damn it.
I think tinfoil is more in style when you're in Canada. I feel like that's what I've heard. So yeah, it's possible. I think that Damien does have a real chance to win the vote. Whether or not he gets the power, that's another question as well. But I do think Kiki also has a shot, and probably would be second place. But again, not much airtime for the viewers. Plus the fact that she's called Kiki and probably called Kira in the vote. I haven't actually looked. I don't know if there's pictures that would probably help. But if there's not, then
calling her Kiki in the house. They called her Kira W when they nominated her.
Yeah.
That's
lots
weird.
of confusion about the name. So maybe let me know in the chat if they have pictures and whether what name they have for her on the vote, because that could really make a huge difference.
We'll see. I'd be stunned if Damien got it again. I really would.
There you go. And then finally, who do you want to be evicted this week? This one was a blowout. Over 90%. Kaylin.
Yeah.
Yikes.
But and just to say, I want to like defend the audience here in this one. It's not like anybody really hates Kaylin. I actually enjoy Kaylin. It's that we want our favorites to stay, and if Kaylin has to go to save our favorites, that's kind of how we're all feeling right now. So I feel like that's where the audience.
I am actually sad to lose her. I didn't want to, but I
am too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel though that like that storyline is like a little played out at this point. I feel like it's like, Kaylin's like leading the charge even though she's not. And I feel like if she stayed, we'd still have that same storyline going. And I feel like once she leaves, that'll open up a little bit more options, similar to like if Adam or Sam were to leave, that would open up more options, because I feel like then they don't have that constant, oh, we got to get Kaylin out. Oh, we got to get Sam out. Once that's been removed from the game, then I feel like there's more to do and there's more doors open and it's like a wide open field. So that's another reason. Like, I don't dislike Kaylin. I think she's an interesting player, but it's like, we got to move on past this beginning game and get into the real game. And I feel like if we don't get her or Sam or Adam out, like, we're not going to get that.
Yes, the chat is letting us know there are pictures in the vote, so I do think that benefits Kiki a lot. So there you go. Anything else that we need to talk about before we start to wrap up here?
Probably need to talk about the fact that you were telling people not to follow. Sorry, no, not to follow me. You said that you didn't want any of the Big Brother Canada producers or stars or house guests to follow me. I do think it's very funny. There have been many Big Brother Canada people who have been in the Big Brother house who have followed me and then quietly unfollowed me.
Yes, they made a mistake. And then they corrected that mistake.
Yes. I will say, there have been some people who have taken it on the chin, as they should. I mean, you go into the Big Brother house, you're open season. That's how I see it. If I went into Big Brother house, I feel like I was open season on anybody. So Johnny still follows me. Johnny was such a
naming
unicorn,
names,
by the way. Yeah, I know, right? Ryan follows me. Yes. Cass follows me. Ika follows me. Is Ika following y'all?
Well, it's very easy to follow you when you're on their side.
Well, I wasn't on Ryan's side. He's still
yes, but the last two.
Johnny, I wasn't on Johnny's side. Although Johnny was a bit of a unicorn.
Ika notably, I don't believe follows me, so I don't know about that.
Who doesn't follow you?
Ika.
Ika? Oh, well, I'm not shocked about that. I
don't think Ika follows me either.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, you're not alone, Sharon.
I'm young enough to remember when we thought that Kira coming into the house would be another Johnny. Wow. After seeing how Kira has performed over the past 2 weeks, I feel like Johnny was such a unicorn. He was so cool, watching him work his ways in the Big Brother house. And even like how sassy he got with people. And in a really fun, stylish way. I'm not getting any of that fun from Kira right now, and it's kind of a drag.
Yeah, I still feel like there should be something there with Kira, but it is just not manifesting. It's not.
We'll see.
All right. Anything else, Melissa?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right. Do we have a hashtag here in the chat for this week's roundtable? And let me know, what you guys think about the the ratings. If you think there's somebody that's too high, too low. We didn't give any advice this week, but that's fine. I feel like you guys know. I feel like personally.
Oh yes. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. No.
No. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, I heard you say on the update that when you're talking, because this is in the conversation about me and Trevor Boris following me and how bad that was for everybody if Trevor Boris is following me. The fact that you noted that when Trevor Boris followed you, that you were like, well, maybe I shouldn't be, like, you felt a little guilty about some of the things that you said.
I said I felt self-conscious.
Self-conscious.
Yes.
Do not feel self-conscious. I feel like you have to maintain your authenticity.
Oh yes, and I have.
Okay, cool, fabulous. And you have. That's true.
It's just like when it's like when you notice that somebody is watching, you're like, oh, and then you're like, no, I gotta be myself.
Yeah.
And I've met Trevor Boris in person, face to face, and told him that I hate his twists. So, what are you gonna do? So let's see. I feel like looking at the prices on the board here, I think Sam is, for me, a little overpriced. I personally would not buy Sam again, even though whoever bought Sam last week was got a windfall this week. So that would be my advice this week. Don't buy any Sam. I don't know if you guys have any ideas, but let's look at the...
It was a little bit straightforward for me about what to do this week. I do feel like it's going to get where there'll be more divergence between what we decide to do, because now I have to decide, okay, do I want to let it ride with Kira because I did make some money, or do I want to sell it and put that money into something else? So I do feel like even though we copied each other this week, I don't feel like that'll necessarily be true next week.
Yes, very true. We have ASMR
I have no idea what that means.
ASMR. No.
ASMR.
They're trying to incorporate ASMR into the name. I feel like ASMR Taryn is probably easier.
I also like
there.
Clark Brent.
Clark Brent. Brent had some glasses on.
Yeah, I had to take out my contacts. They were bothering me, so I ran away and put my glasses on. People were like, "Oh my God, Brent, we love it." I'm like, I don't know any of you people because I hate glasses.
All right, let's go with Clark Brent. This was a fun roundtable here. So
it's fun to give people bad scores.
Yes. I will be live tomorrow morning, of course, at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother Canada 7 live feeds. Thursday night, we will be live to recap the eviction, where we will lose either Kaylin or Damien, and then we'll be back next week to update the stock watch once again and have some fun. So tune into all of that. You can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taryn. You can avoid following Brent at OneLuckyGay, and you can find Melissa at It's Melissa with 3 A's. And yeah, there you go. For Brent and Melissa, I'm Taryn Armstrong. # Clark Brent. We'll see you next time.